What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Happy Friday the 13th in October. How often does that shit happen? What's going on, everybody? I'm hearing myself. All
right, we got it. We're good.
We got it. All right, guys. So we had the first half of October so far. We had Saw X released at the very end of tail end of last month. We've had Exorcist Believer. It's really only the horror stuff we're getting until Five Nights at Freddy's, and who knows how that's going to be. But to my left, I got it right this time. It's always opposite. To my left this way, but your right if you're watching, is Mr. Joey Sasso. Joey, introduce yourself to anybody that does not recognize you.
What's up, guys? My name is Joey Sasso. I'm a loud Italian from upstate New York. Some people know me from Netflix reality shows, The Circle, Perfect Match. But what you guys don't know about me is that I am a diehard horror fan. I moved to LA to be an actor and filmmaker. Did the whole struggling actor thing for many years. Never was seeking reality television. Shit happens in life. It changed my entire life. Very blessed for it. But now at this point, I'm trying to tell people more about me, like the fact that I'm a fucking nerd. And I am very excited to be here. I'm not blowing smoke because I'm on with Cody right now. The truth of the matter is Cody is my favorite YouTuber. We became friends because I DM'd him on Insta and was like, bro, I love your shit. I pretty much always agree with all of your opinions. And even when I don't, you're always spot on. Like, you have a very clear point of view, because without naming people or shitting on other people, I think there's a lot of people in the YouTube space who just say shit for views and clicks and to seem like they have hot takes, where when you find someone who's actually a fan of film and has something to say, you stick with them. So Cody's the best. Very happy to be here with all of you. And we're going to have some fucking fun tonight. Let's do this.
Damn, I'm like, my ego's inflated now. I'm ready to go. I appreciate that, though. Everybody, let us know, too, how the audio and everything goes. If there's any echo or anything, please, before we get started. It sucks when you're already ranting and raving on a movie, and then they're like, oh, by the way, there's an echo. So let us know if everything sounds good. But, yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, it's a really funny story to me, because I really don't watch reality TV hardly ever. Very, very few exceptions. Like, Survivor I get into here and there. There's been a few, but typically my wife gets into that. And I remember like it was yesterday, I had my laptop and I had my headphones in, and she starts this show, The Circle. And I'm like, what the fuck is this bullshit? I ain't watching this. And like 3 episodes go by and I'm like, barely paying attention, doing my thing. And then by like episode 4, I start noticing that I'm doing this, and I'm getting a little more into it. And then I started to kind of get sucked in. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. I like this guy, Joey. He's cool. I hope he wins. Not blowing smoke. For real. I was just like, I like Joey. He's cool. I like his attitude and his personality. And then you end up winning season 1. I was like, see, I told you, Joey, season 1. And then I think by that, there was like season 3 was going on. And then randomly you messaged me. I didn't even believe it at first. I was like, nah, that ain't the real Joey. It can't be the real Joey. And then I added you, and I was like, I don't know. Maybe he's just a networker. Maybe he's just adding people. And then you messaged me. You're like, hey, huge horror fan, huge fan of your channel. I'm like, no fucking way. And I was laying next to my wife, and I was like, you ain't going to believe what just fucking happened. And it's just such an odd thing that out of all of the reality shows and all the people that have been on it, the only one that I was like, I like this guy. He liked me too. So it was fate.
Dude, it's weird how shit like that happens. I've had so many people say that when I've reached out to people, like that. I'm just like, yo, I fuck with you. They're like, this isn't you. I'm like, motherfucker, I am like a Z list. I'm not even on the D list of anything. Like, why would it? I wish I could sit there and be like, yeah, it was my assistant sending messages. Like, no, dude. And it's funny when you talked about watching the show. I say this always honestly, not being a hater. I had the same fucking reaction when I first watched it, because when you're there filming it, you're like, what the fuck? Who's gonna watch this shit? Like, we're sitting here talking to screens. Like, I don't watch reality television, which is why I think it's very ironic how I've sort of got my foot in the door. I don't watch it either. And I was just like, all I know about reality TV is people hook up and fight. We're not doing anything. I don't know how it's gonna work. This is probably gonna be the biggest flop in Netflix history. And lo and behold, the show came out and was a major success. And I watched it and was like, oh, I get it now. I was there, but now I actually get it. And it's strangely endearing. So, yeah, man, it's funny. I had the same exact reaction the first time I watched it.
I told my wife, and she had 2 responses. She was like, no fucking way. And then immediately after that, she goes, does Shuby watch your channel too? And I was like,
Dude, we got to get Shubes on a stream. His movie takes are awful, which is why they're hilarious. But he's set in stone on them, and let Shubes live his life, I guess.
I'm all about that, man. Like, for as arrogant and as stuck in like my opinion is God mode that people think that I'm in, I love the weird opinions because that creates the interesting conversations. Like, there's 95% of the world out there they're going to say the same shit about movies. Like, Halloween's the greatest, and it's like, okay, cool, I agree.
So
Nothing
when
else.
it comes to weird opinions, how realistically, how positive or negative were you that I was going to tell you I was a fan of The Exorcist believer?
I was 50-50. I was 50-50 because I was pretty sure I had enough of an angle on your taste to be like, this doesn't feel like something that would be weird enough that he would defend it. It just feels like a bunch of really bad decisions. But I know, like, preface this by like a conversation we had 2 or 3 days ago where you're like, dude, I'm the one who loves Saw 3D. And I was like, shit, I don't know. He might love this one. He might say it's better than the original. We'll find out.
I was going to wear my Freddy's Dead shirt tonight for you just to make you happy. But yeah, dude, I think here's the thing. We're going to get into all of it. I really wish the movie had been weird. I wish it had taken swings. I'm the guy who knows how the cake is made. I understand how the process works. So many things that I think people don't think about when they go and just watch a film. And I get it. Most people are audience members. They don't have to. However, I look at things that don't work in movies, and that will make me love a movie because I'm like, yo, they're fucking trying something here. They're going for something, and they didn't necessarily get there, but it's interesting. And for people watching, I am the guy who loves Halloween Ends. I think it's the best film of the David Gordon Green trilogy. I genuinely think it's going to be the Halloween 3 of the later half of Halloween films down the road. I watch it very often. It's a comfort movie. I really don't understand the hate. If you love horror and cinema, it's so well shot. It's so well done. I really wish there was a lot of that with The Exorcist. I actually walked in being like, look, everyone's having the same opinion like they did about Halloween Ends. And I said to Josh is my writing partner for people watching. I was like, dude, are we going to love this movie? I feel like we're going to love it. And boy, oh boy, was that not what happened at all.
Oh, yeah. We'll get into that one. We're going to save that one for last. But let's see. Really quick, I got one super chat. I don't know if you've been caught up to speed on this one. Sean Sheridan asks, thoughts about Best Buy stopping physical media sales. So have you seen that get shared around?
I saw that yesterday. I'm a lifelong physical media collector, as I know you are, and everyone else. My VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, every collection. It's my library of films. I think it's fucking disgusting. Makes me sick to my stomach. I also think something that's wrong with it, in my opinion, is we grew up with DVDs being in the height of special bonus features. I learned so much about filmmaking, special effects, writing, directing from watching these in-depth documentaries that they would spend the time and the money to make. And it was so insightful for filmmakers. And they don't do that anymore. They put the typical EPK shit on there. Well, everyone, oh my God, it was such a good experience. I love the director. We all loved each other. It was all great. The script was so good. Filmmaking is never like that. I think that's something that's really hurt the market. And however, I also think it's going to come back around. It's like vinyl. It's like give everything time.
Yeah. I don't buy into the whole, like, the fear mongering narrative out there that they're just gonna rip everything away from us so that they can take all the people fear that those are going to go away, all the Blu-rays and DVDs and 4Ks, and they're just going to do the licensing stuff that they do on VOD so that they can rip it away from us whenever they can. And while it sucks when that happens, and there's definitely been a few instances where it's just like, okay, that's kind of scummy for a studio to do that, and it makes you wonder how much value these streaming services has. It just doesn't seem like there's any truth to that. It's so nefarious. So like my whole thing, like I used to love going to Best Buy. That would be like a comfort thing for me, just randomly when I was building up my physical media collection, go in there, look around, see what sales are on, end up with 3 or 4 different things, go check out. And over the last 5 years, I've seen it just dwindling down to like 1-2 shelves.
It's terrible.
And so it doesn't surprise me whatsoever. I don't even like going into Best Buy anymore for those reasons. And what surprised me was that I think, if I'm not mistaken, it said they're also going to stop sales online, which was the crazy part to me. But you still have Amazon, which is pretty much the only place I buy movies from it anyway, because even the last time I tried to buy something through Best Buy, I pre-ordered the Prey 4K, and the shipping got screwed up. And so by the time I found out the shipping was screwed up, I tried to order it again, and they're sold out. And I'm like, okay, well, great. So,
dude, it's for me. Tuesday release day was always my highlight of the week. Like, I'm a I've told you this, OCD, addictive personality person. So like, when I get into my routines, I can't break them. And for years, that's all I did. Every Tuesday, I'd go buy shit that I didn't even like or didn't even see, just because I like having things on the shelf. And people would walk into my bedroom and see a huge wall of just Blu-rays deep and be like, oh my God. And it's a conversation piece. I think that, you know, it's ironic. I don't even have a Netflix account anymore. Like I don't. I've never been a streaming dude.
Is it in your contract somewhere you're not allowed to say that?
Yeah, but here's the thing. You know, I did, like everyone else, there's so many subscriptions. I'm trying to save to buy a house. I cut all of my stuff for the most part, besides Disney Plus, for my nieces to watch their shows because they're babies. And my sister's like, I'll fucking kill you. Don't cancel that. I'm like, okay, fair. So kept that. But it's streaming it's such a double-edged sword, man. And for those watching, Cody knows I have a movie that's getting ready to come out next year. And that was such a conversation when talking to distributors of, I don't want to feel like I spent 10 years to make a digital file.
Yeah.
I want my movie on my shelf. I want to be able to, even if it's just for me and for all these companies who are like, no, physical media is dead. And I'm like, okay, can we carve out the contract that I can do my own things and with my distribution company, with my production company, and it becomes a whole thing? Because, dude, I know we all feel this way. No matter how big of a release it is, you sit there, spend an hour scrolling to find something, you hit play, you don't really watch, you're on your phone, you're not drawn in. There is something to committing to feeling that thing in your hands, looking at the cover art, reading the back, popping that disc in, hitting play, getting that remote, and giving yourself over to something, whether you love it or you hate it. I mean, how many people click on something today and actually watch it?
Oh, yeah.
Spend time to watch it, give their real insights, because they're on their phones. I'm not into it. If there's literally 10 seconds of downtime, I'm not into it. And I don't know, there's something lost with it. I'm not the guy who's, it's like the film versus digital conversation. I'm not the guy who's ever here or here. I'm like, everything should exist. There's a place for everything. However, I just think it's really sad. Like, you know, I live in LA. We have Amoeba Music, one of the biggest physical media stores in the world. My favorite thing to do when I was dead broke is go to Amoeba on Sundays and just scroll the aisles and look at what is Vinegar Syndrome putting out, Grindhouse releasing, or Synapse, or Scream Factory. And it's just, I don't know, man. I know we're a dying breed of people, but I have faith that physical media will always be around. I just think it's really sad that these big chains that have the power are going to get rid of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really have much to add. You pretty much took the words out of my mouth. I'll always buy physical media. I mean, I love having streaming services, and I love being able to have a digital library. It has its benefits, but I'm with you. There's something about committing. That's one of the reasons why even just the theatrical experience is sacred. Because and I get pissed when people go in there and they have their fucking cell phones out. I was at Fantastic Fest and saw 23 movies in 8 days, which is an endurance test enough. Came home, planned to watch more on their little at-home service, and I just knew I watched one of them, and it was a test to kind of with all the distractions of home, and I knew I stopped at 24 because if I force myself to watch the others, I'm not going to give them a fair shake because I'm going to get distracted or I'm going to get bored or you know, after watching so many movies, I was already kind of like, I don't want to look at a TV anymore, and so.
It makes sense, right? Like, we're conditioned to grow. Like, I mean, we are because of the age we are, but we grew up going to the movies and putting yourself in that seat for that experience. We all have so much to do. We have lives, we have careers. It's hard to sit on the couch or sit in bed at home and just shut off for all of us. It's not that it's like, fuck this movie, I'm not into it. It's just what life is today. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's something like, I think back to when The Irishman came out. I'm a diehard Scorsese fan. I waited for that film for so many years, and I was so happy that I lived in LA and went to The Egyptian. I saw that movie in theaters 10 times because I'm like, this movie is so important to me.
It's like 4 weeks.
Yeah, I'm like, look it. I want to experience this. And I felt so happy that I could go to a theater and see it, but everyone else around the country, like my parents, had to sign up for Netflix to watch it and do it. It doesn't have the same experience. Like Martin fucking Scorsese, all of these people, they make it for that theatrical experience, and we're slowly watching that dwindle away. And I just am very happy that we have the champions of theatrical cinema who stand up, the Tarantinos and the Nolans. But I'm telling you guys, I know you guys only know me from reality TV. I'm in the filmmaking game. I have so many friends in this game. It is nearly impossible to get to that level of being a name, because everyone wants to throw their weight around and get the things they want. You're not able to. So it's really hard, and that's why we need more up and coming filmmakers to get out and make your movie, fucking succeed, and stick up for the shit that you love about cinema. Because I'm telling you, these people who run these companies, for the most part, they don't care. They just don't care.
Oh yeah, we see that all the time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, we just got to keep it alive. You and me, Joey.
Yeah,
we'll
man,
keep
absolutely.
it alive for everybody. All right. Well, let's get into the two movies we're here to talk about. So first up, we'll talk about Saw X. Now, as far as kind of setting the stage for those that may have not watched the plethora of Saw content that I have, or if you're joining me for the first time, Saw was something that I jumped on the bandwagon on immediately. I saw this thing. It was just the DVD cover at Walmart, just a severed hand and a foot, I think was the cover. And I was like, fuck yeah, I don't even care what it's about. You know, that old school walking through Blockbuster and just picking a movie based off what had the coolest cover. And I really enjoyed the movie. Never thought Carrie Elways was the best in it, but it was unique enough. It was 7-ish in flavor with something different. And then all of a sudden, it was this big thing to where it was the water cooler movie at my high school. Everybody was talking about it for the next like 4 months after they finally saw it. And then Saw became that yearly thing for the first 7 years. And I really liked the first 3 films. I dropped off about 4. And, you know, we'll get into it maybe. But, you know, as we've joked around about privately, I'm not a big fan of the Hoffman era. And so I got back into it more so with Spiral than Jigsaw. But Jigsaw was the first one where I was actively talking about movies, critiquing movies and everything. Didn't love that one. Spiral I enjoyed quite a bit. And so when they talked about Saw X and plans to, first of all, just doing another Saw movie in general, I was like, milking that cow to death. And then they say, well, we're going to have Tobin Bell come back. And it's going to be, you know, way back in the day, like not a prequel, but back in, you know, between 1 and 2. I was like, that's like the most obvious well to go back to. I liked how different Spiral was, you know, kind of pushing it into a new generation. I wanted to see more with that. Clearly, the fans disagreed for various reasons. And so I was very much set in stone that I was probably not going to care much for this movie. And at Fantastic Fest, they had 4 secret screenings, and one of the big rumors for one of them was Saw X. Luckily, it was one of the ones that I got into. Movie starts, we check it out, the Fantastic Fest crowd. I walk out. And my first thoughts are like, how in the fuck is that possibly the best Saw movie for me? Like that, I just never saw that coming. Like I figured if anything, I'd be like, yeah, that's one of the better ones. But you know, I still wish we got Spiral too. And I just really, really fucking dug what they brought in with this one. So before we get into detail, you set the stage for you because I know you're much more of a Saw fan than me.
Yeah, I think Saw is probably my 3rd or 4th favorite franchise of all time. I remember I was a young kid. I was a monthly Fangoria subscriber, lived for those magazines every month. Would get them after going to the gym with my dad if they didn't come into the mail, because I grew up, I was a boxer. And I remember hearing about this little independent horror film called Saw. And even at that point, I idolized filmmakers like, you know, the Kevin Smiths of the world, who would go to Sundance and have a little indie that you would hear all this buzz about. And I'd be reading all this stuff. And there was all this buzz about this horror movie called Saw. And I remember I was probably, I don't know, 11, 12 years old at this point, maybe 13. Mm-hmm. And it became one of those titles where you would hear it and you would put this visual in your head. And then it was on the cover of Fangoria magazine. I was reading on it, and I'll never forget, you know, my dad, being the trooper that he was, took me to see everything, let me watch whatever I wanted. Thank God, because he knew at that point I wanted to be a director. Mm-hmm. I go to the theater, have all this buzz about this breakout movie, and I watch it, and I was fucking floored. I just loved it. This was the age of I love everything. Everything works for me. Oh my God, this is the most insane thing. And you know, I'm still like that a lot of times with things, but not as much. But it just floored me. And I immediately was reading online about sequels. And to make a long story short, I was that kid. If you guys remember back in the day, they had the IMDb message boards, and you would post on there. And if you were a Saw fan, you spent the year on the IMDb message boards on the new film, debating what we think is going to happen, what the plots are going to be. I spent every year going to the midnight show. I have vivid memories of seeing every single film at the midnight show the night it was released, waiting for it, seeing each in theaters 2 or 3 times a piece, trying to find out as many tidbits as I could. I remember one year I found the production number for Saw 4, where they were in Canton. I called and someone answered, and I got so scared and hung up the phone. And I was like, oh my God. And it all worked for me, man. And I think the thing for me that made the franchise stick out is the thing a lot of people don't like about it, which is the storytelling. Because again, at that time, we grew up with Friday the 13th, Halloween, so many different storylines, different types of, you know, you could have a movie that you love, and then the next movie, everything that happened the previous is inconsequential. This was the first time it felt like someone was giving respect to horror fans, and we're going to actually give you a story. And in retrospect, looking back, a lot of it don't work, but a lot of it I still just love. And I got wrapped up in those characters, with the exception of Saw 5. That is one of the most hated films for me in my entire life. My friends still laugh at me about it, like, because they know I fucking despise that movie. I literally cried at the midnight show the first year it came out because how much I fucking hated it, how much and it felt like the last year of my life. I'm like, they ruined it. I remember every year waiting to see Bloody Disgusting. I was a huge Bloody Disgusting fan. See what their review was for the new film, and they'd always have it the day before release. So I remember like Saw 4 came out, and it was like a 3.5 out of 5 skull review, and like they haven't lost it yet. And then Saw 5, there was like that half a skull, 1 skull. And I was like, oh no. And to make matters worse, I don't know if anyone watching has ever had this experience. You know, back when they project it on film, the film has to be lined up correctly. Otherwise, you can see things. They lined up the film incorrectly. So the entire film, you see a boom. The whole boom was in throughout the entire movie of every fucking scene. And I remember going home, posting on the message boards. I didn't know that at this point in time that was a thing. So I was like, not only is this movie fucking terrible, how the fuck did they have the boom in every single shot of the movie? So I remember it would be all those scenes of Strom talking to himself. You thought we were going to die. And I'm sitting there, there's just a big boom over his head. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's awesome.
Bro,
I want to watch that cut.
Oh my God. It was so infuriating. I was so upset. But yeah, I loved every single one of them. I loved that it was really smart that we got 7 films 7 years in a row. I think that's a brilliant marketing thing. That they cared enough to try to give us some storytelling. It became so convoluted, so crazy. But to me, that's the fun of it. I don't know. I'm like, I give myself over. And to talk really quickly before we get into it about Saw 3D, I love that movie because it's a movie that knows what it is. And at this point, when you look at every single franchise, every really big horror franchise, it needs certain types of entries. You need the 3D gimmicky, we've totally jumped the shark entry, whether it's Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. I know a lot of people hate those entries. I love them because I'm like, it's zany, it's off the wall, it's fun, and it's almost more enjoyable than even the better good entries. And then also for all of us Dr. Gordon fans, we spent years on those message boards thinking he was the accomplice, thinking it was him with all these pieces throughout the films. And then when that reveal happened, it fucking I was like, this is made for me. This was fan service before we knew what fan service was. And it felt like the last 7 years of dedication was not in vain, that it was for a reason. So it will always hold a place to me. It becomes completely ridiculous. The Hoffman shit is redonkulous, but I'm fucking here for it. So yeah, love the franchise. And with Saw X, I agree. Jigsaw, not a fan. I can always find things I like about a film in general. I think it was so convoluted, such a poor way to try to bring back the franchise. I fucking love Spiral. I'm a huge Darren Lynn Bousman fan. I think that movie gets so unjustly hated. I think that Chris Rock is so good. Everyone's like, he's trying to be funny and practice stand-up. I'm like, where do you see him trying to be funny in that movie?
That's my favorite part of his performance, when he's in his element and he's kind of cracking jokes. I'm harsher on when he's not doing that, when he's trying to be stoic and he kind of does this look when he's walking towards stuff. That's not Chris Rock to me. I know he was trying to do something different to kind of break through a new wall in his acting career, but to me, when he's Chris Rock, that's when I buy his character as the fast-witted, joking around, kind of stand-up quality humor. That's the part that I like.
But to me, that's even the stuff you're saying that didn't work for you. It worked for me because I'm like, I've never seen this side of him, and I could tell how committed he is, and I'm here for it. I love that. I think so much of why fans of Saw love the franchise is because of Darren Lynn Bousman. Yes, James Wan and Lee Winnell started this, but those 2, 3, and 4 are so much of the way we associate the look of the color palettes, the editing, every single thing. So the fact that he was coming back, I was so ecstatic for it. And look it's got the worst next to Saw 5 ending with the twist. It's so obvious. That's the downfall of the film. I think the film is so much better than its ending. I wish they would have gone a different direction with it. But with Saw X, I honestly, I didn't know how to feel about it. It felt very obvious. Like, oh, of course, that's what they're doing. And me being the lifelong Saw fan, I was a little upset that I wasn't just ecstatic about it. Because I was just like, look, there's a new Saw movie coming out. I'm going to be fucking 30 years old this year. I still get to go to the movies and see a new Saw movie. Fuck yeah, dude. Like, let's go have a good time. And I remember we had talked about it in the summertime, and I told you I'd heard from sources that it was testing very well. And you were like, I don't care.
Who are they testing? Fans?
Yeah, it's not going to be good. And then when I saw your reaction and everyone else's reaction, I was so excited, and I went to the theater and was really just blown away at what they did, and that it took us this long to have an entry at this caliber. However, I don't think this film would have played as well as it does today if it came out in the chronological order of the earlier first 7.
I can agree with that.
I just don't think it would play as well. I think we're in a different place where I think studios are acknowledging that film fans are fans, and we want things that we'll be excited about, like having Tobin Bell come back for an entire film and really letting him stretch his legs and do some things. And I've heard a lot of people online shitting on the people who shit on Jigsaw and Spiral about the two writers, Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger, and being like, well, what changed? I don't know them. I've talked to Josh Stolberg online a few times. I think I follow him. What I would guess is, guys, if you're going in for a job, it's not that you're going, here's the script, let's go make it. The studio is saying to you, this is what you're going to give us this. And you have to take these notes and give them what they want in the ways that you could. I think 2 movies in now, this was the movie that they were really allowed to do what they wanted because the producers allowed them to do it. And that's why the film shines so night and day above the other 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't speak on how Jigsaw came about, but I think that's exactly what happened with Spiral if I read facts. The one when they were gearing up for Spiral, they were doing this story direction for that eventually became Saw X. And it was only after Chris Rock got involved with Lionsgate and he had his own spin and stuff that they kind of compromised and did a different version of what they were working on with Chris Rock and molded that together and kind of pushed the Saw X thing to the side. And, I still think Spiral was really good, so I don't think that was a mistake. I hope they go back to it at some point, but I think two attempted reboots in a row, at that point, it was like the fans were screaming, like, without Jigsaw, we don't care. And so they're like, all right, fuck it.
But dude, even with Spiral, like, I don't know, like, this is why I get mad at film fans. Like, we all grew up thinking of scenarios of films and characters that would go in certain ways that we would just never see. Can we just really quick acknowledge the way Spiral happened? Chris Rock talked to the head of Lionsgate and told him he was a huge fan, and the head of Lionsgate called Oren Cools and Mark Berg and was like, Chris Rock wants to make a Saw movie. You have to do this. And they were like, okay. Can you imagine a world where we're sitting here in conversation where we're like, imagine a Saw movie starring Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson? we would like your mind would run with the possibility that movie exists. It actually exists. And the fact that Chris Rock was a big enough fan to really put his name and career on the line to get it done, I don't know. I think that's awesome. I agree. I think it's so unjustly hated, but I think I understand how people could feel like they had two soft starts that didn't work, and now they're going back to the most obvious thing. But man, they didn't play it safe on this, and that's what I fucking loved about it. They did not play it safe at all.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely went back to some of the look and some of the approach of the early films, which to me, at least from my casual fan perspective, seemed like the most beloved ones. And then I was undersold on how different the movie was going to be with having Tobin Bell be front and center for so long. And I wasn't even really sold on the trailer on how much it was really going to dive into him. And so that's kind of what sold me on it, because my big thing that I was kind of missing from some of the earlier movies is a good amount of character development with him, and him always kind of being in the background, and then they kill him off in 3, and it's like, well, what the fuck? And then he was just in tapes and flashbacks. And so I really liked how the movie was very much his story, and you got into it more. And I was surprised how much it was successful in actually making me really invest in him as a protagonist, even though he's this horrific multi-murderer and everything. And you know, it created a scenario to where you genuinely hate the people he's going after more than him. And so you kind of put blinders on to his own crimes and his own evil. And he seems like this poor old man that you're rooting for. And so it was wild.
Take me into it for you. When you watch this, right, at Fantastic Fest, you're not excited. Mm-hmm. You're not a fan of the franchise. At what point in this screening do you feel yourself really getting over to it?
It was slowly throughout the movie. So the movie starts off and, you know, he's getting his cancer treatment done, and he's getting some bad news. And then he sees this guy who's stealing from somebody who's asleep, who's on this hospital bed. And you get the eye trap here. And then it's revealed that it's just all in his head. And I loved it was the first spot of like the dark, self-aware humor that the movie had, which was the first time we've gotten that, where the guy sees him, puts the stuff back, walks out, and he goes, "Good choice." And it was just like, that's fucking funny. And then I laughed. And then you get this whole, you know, where he goes in, he gets his treatment, and he seems like he's got a new lease on life. And it borderline goes into like this really cheesy, almost romantic comedy type thing, to where he's this old man that's sitting in a park where there's birds flying, and he's like, this, I've gained my life back, and it looks down, and he's designing another trap. And so it was really the dark humor that I think won me over up until then it started to get into all the carnage and stuff. I was actually, as much as I liked the carnage, that was the section of the movie that I was least invested in, because it was just like a trap montage for that second act. But even lines of dialogue where you get the guy who is Cecilia's lover who comes in with a gun, and they make him watch as they do one of the tests, and they're explaining their morality and why this has to happen. You know, they need to be taught. And then he's just like, "You guys are fucking nuts," or he says something, and I'm like, finally, the fucking movie's acknowledged he's full of shit. And so that's really what I liked about it, was the dark humor, and them finally saying, okay, like, we know we played it dead serious, and Jigsaw thinks that his rules are steadfast, and there's no moral issue with it, and he doesn't break any of the rules, and I've always called bullshit on that. And finally the movie's acknowledging, we're just having fun, just go along with it, we know it's bullshit, but he believes it, he's got the god complex, and we're just going to have fun with that. That's what I enjoyed. And then the other spot that I was really surprised by, that was another thing in the trailer that I was like, I don't even care, when they showed Amanda, and everybody's like, Amanda's coming back, and I'm like, so what? We've seen everything with her story, what more can they tell us? And then you get into this, and it explores their relationship a bit more, and the existence of Cecilia and what she does with the drug addict girl that Amanda was really sympathetic towards, sets these breadcrumbs in place that they really only start to develop in this one, and are clearly going to be explored in Saw X2 or 3, whatever they end up calling them. But they really set a nice breadcrumb there that explains a lot more about why she goes the direction she does in Saw 3, which, as is from Saw 1 to Saw 3, I never really needed anything. I'm like, well, she's clearly mentally unstable if she's going to hang out with this fucking dude, so it's not that big of a stretch that suddenly she's murdering people. But the fact that they put that in there, as something that's going to create that rift to where you get to the end of the movie, she has the easiest test of all of them, the most evil bitch in the room, and then they just leave because she won. You know, okay, whatever, you won, have a nice life. And I could see the very next scene her being like, we're not going to go chop her fucking head off. What's going on here? What's up, John? That doesn't make any sense. So it was all those elements that, like, things that I've always said and I've always thought about the movies that they never really acknowledged, finally being acknowledged, is what I really enjoyed about it. And luckily the rest of the movie was just really well done with the gore and the way that it was directed, that didn't bring that down. So that's kind of the big elements for me where this gave me what other Saw films never gave me.
Yeah, I mean, I always wonder, I wish I could be a fly on the wall for what the conversations are during the development process. And I even saw on Twitter, one of the writers said the first meeting they had about this film was back in 2017 or 2018. So they've been developing it for a long time, but little things like the film really took its time. It didn't need to force us. It didn't do that with having a slow pace, because you were really invested in Tobin Bell's performance. And there was just that, I remember there was that scene where he's laying on the couch before he gets on the computer, and it's like old early 2000s, Internet Explorer type shit, and he's sitting on the couch sick, and you're like, wow, like they're really fucking making us invest in this film, in this guy. And when he's in that cancer support group, it had total Fight Club vibes, and we're sitting there really feeling like, again, when does this turn into a Saw movie? And the fact that the film had the balls to do that and to let that first hour really be development, to me, was so smart. I still can't believe they got away with it. I don't know how an executive at Lionsgate wasn't like, no, we need that opening murder to hook the audience in. I mean, that's why we had to have the eyeball test, because they didn't do that. And I get that, but they made it work. They made it work for the character and for the story. And I think Tobin Bell, man, the way he plays this film, and this is like the actor nerd of me where I can just really geek out of the things that I don't think anyone else realizes, the nuances of, he plays it completely different than we've ever seen him play it. Because when he's watching each person go through, you see in his eyes, without him having to say a word, that he wants them to win, that he wants them to get out of this. And I feel like you see that because he wants to have faith in humanity after knowing he's getting ready to exit this plane. He's dying. These people have robbed him, done terrible things, and he already has this fucked up moral compass of testing people. And to me, it's like the Dexter thing. I know we're both Dexter fans when the show was great. You don't ever agree with these people, but because they present themselves so clearly, you understand them 100%, and you're right there with them. This is the only film in the franchise that commits to its concept, what it should be, 100%. Like, again, I love the sequels, but like Saw 6, a guy's getting fucking killed because he's a cigarette smoker. What the fuck did he do? Like, let the guy smoke his cigarettes and live. Yeah, fucking janitor, come on. But with this, you really feel that he wants these people to win. And I watched interviews with the director, Kevin Greuter, talking about it, and he was like, look, we were very clear to go back to, these are not traps. These are tests. That's how this started. Like, even as a defender of Saw 3D, I'll never forget when Bobby Dagan's watching the tape and I see it in the theater and Jigsaw's voice like, you were never in a trap. And that's the first time it's ever acknowledged in universe that it's called a trap. And I was like, oh God, yeah, we are jumping the shark. We're going there. Like, we're really going there. This movie, man, it went back to those basics. I've heard a lot of people online say they were disappointed in the traps. And I'm like, dude, they were so fucking simple. That's what I loved about them. They weren't huge set pieces. They weren't all these things. It was contained again. And you really feel Jigsaw's, you really feel the push and pull in him. You feel everything with Amanda, like you said, with Saw 3, with Where We Go. And even with Cecilia's boyfriend, in retrospect, I should have known what that twist was going to be. But because this movie was taking such risks, I was like, oh no, like this is really like, we're in a fucking character study for a Saw movie. This is really going to be what would a normal person who stumbles into this think and believe. Like, are they going to go along with it? And I know we don't need any more apprentices, but if that twist wasn't that, would have loved to have seen how they would have done that with that. Because Jigsaw's code is so flawed in some of the films, but in this one, you really feel his commitment to I'm trying to teach people, and that's why I loved when the cab driver survived his game, which we haven't had in so long.
I agree.
Again, the writer in me, if I could change anything, and I hate being that fucking guy who's like, I would have done this because we're all watching it as a finished product.
Yeah.
However, I think what would have been so much more powerful is I would have had every single one of them survive. I would have had every single one of those people survive because we know what happens with Cecilia. She fucking goes full villain in the end. Like they crank it up, and a lot of people have, that has not worked for them. How she just becomes super villain right at the end. If you're gonna go that route, I would have had each of them survive. And then when she gets let out by her boyfriend, she fucking does whatever the traps would have done to fucking kill all of them. And I would have just doubled down of, again, it's that screenwriting thing of like, if you're going to make them the most hated villain, like that's why they did the kid and everything. But like, I don't know. I just think there would have been something to, if you're sitting in the theater watching this and you're like, every one of them are going to fucking survive. How the fuck is this going to play out? I think that could have been really fun and interesting. However, the finished movie is fucking great. That's just my thing of what I would have just dabbled with a little bit.
Were you at all, the main criticism that I've seen of the movie, which I understand, especially if you weren't lucky enough to see it in the context that I did, where the writers were literally there to answer questions minutes later. Were you disappointed at all in the climax of the film, to where you have Cecilia, the twist, you have the Hello Zet music, you got Cecilia, you got her lover, and she survives. She's, got her head stuck through that hole, and John and Amanda are like peace, and then the movie just ends until that mid-credit scene. Did you feel like that was a disappointing climax, or was it very clear to you that this is just step one in more stories?
It, kind of both. You got, again, in the moment, you got to just go with what you're watching and try not to be ahead of the movie. So I wasn't really disappointed. I could see in retrospect where they were going, but first viewing, again, I was fucking cracked out in the theater, so excited, because I'm like, when he puts himself in that trap, I was like, again, what I thought was going to happen, and I was wrong, is in my brain, I was trying to go back and watch the movies, and I was like, oh, fuck, I think between Saw 2 and 3, we never see him stand up, ever. Like, I think he's always sitting, so I'm like, is there something with his spine where, like, oh, this is why he never fucking stands in the sequels? But that was wrong. So I
Ultra nerd.
Yeah, I'm trying to like think of what the fuck's gonna happen here. And when you're such a nerd of these things and a writer, creative person, I never thought of him being put in his own game. So I was so excited about that. And I talked to a friend of mine who it didn't work for them with the kid. And I understand it, but you need the kid. You need, in terms of screenwriting, there's this book called Save the Cat. It's very explanatory. You save the cat. That's what makes someone likable. And they set that up from the beginning with him helping him with the bike. You needed that because in retrospect, we know this was all part of his game. He was going to put himself in here. He was going to go through it with Amanda. But you see, especially on other watches, when that kid gets brought in, the look in Tobin Bell's face of, I did not anticipate this. I mean, I got fucking chills just thinking about it. I did not anticipate this. I did not ever think this was going to happen. What the fuck am I going to do? There's that moment when he grabs her and he's always, I'm not a murderer. I'm not a murderer. I despise murderers. This whole fucked up thing. He's about to fucking kill her because of this fucking kid. And I think it's also ballsy of the producers to say our main villain, who we know is our main villain, we're going to make him the likable anti-hero in this film. And they really went with that angle. And I get that it's going to make in terms of when the series is all wrapped up, it's going to make 2 and 3 seem even weirder because if he's not that way, but who gives a fuck? We can fuck with the time. We have soap opera storytelling in this. We can do whatever the fuck we want. It's fun. With that, I think, sure, it's a little bit of a cop-out that you're setting up for sequels a bit, but like there's those little things to me that outweigh it for me. For example, sitting in the theater every year watching a Saw film, every film ends with that door close, that's, whatever smash to black of a door or elevator, whatever it is. This film literally ends with them walking out into bright sunlight. Like it's just, it's so different. It's so out there. I think sometimes when I've heard complaints about the film, I think we can be a little nitpicky about this movie because it is so much better than it should be.
Yeah.
And you have so many things that work. Those little things stand out. But, you know, look at interviews with Kevin Goiter, man, talking about how long it took them to get the practical effects ready. And you watch this movie. We watch everything. You know, we've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I winced. I couldn't look. I was literally, and that doesn't happen to me. Also, my biggest pet peeve in horror is beheadings, decapitations. They always look like shit. They never look good. This movie, it was because the effect of how the body fell after the wire cut. I was just like, oh my God, like it is so fucking well done. The fact that it went back to that single room setting, I think was so incredibly smart. Having him there the entire time. I don't know, man. I sit here and think about it, and I kind of wish this would have been Saw 8 before Jigsaw and before Spiral, because I look at the numbers Jigsaw did, and it did very well, and that movie's not really loved, and I think that's hurt this franchise keeping going forward how it would, because we should have Saw 11 next year. Tobin Bell's 81 years old, dude. Like, how much time do we have with him? Like, we spent 20 years with the first half of this entire franchise. Can we get back to that? It's Halloween, it must be Saw, and let this guy do it? Because if we wait, we're not gonna get it. And I think it could really help this franchise exist even better than it does today, to have a number of entries that are this good, and then have the other ones that are what they are. You know?
Yeah. I'm with you. Like I said, I was somebody that dropped off after Saw 3 and they killed Jigsaw. I was like, what are they going to do here? And then Saw 4 didn't really sell me. So Saw 4 was kind of the point where I kind of fell off. This is the first time since Saw 4, even with Spiral. Spiral I liked, but it wasn't like I need to have Spiral 2. This is the first time since way back in the day, 20 years ago, where I'm like, I'm really excited for where they're going to take this. And, you know, it was cool for me to be able to hear the Q&A of the writers as they were talking about very intentionally leaving things the way that they did at the end of the movie, and their plans to make her kind of like the foil antagonist for Jigsaw for however many movies they do. I think a trilogy is probably a safe bet. And like I said, because it was such an interesting breadcrumb start for the change of his relationship with Amanda, I'm even more invested in that, because she's going to seriously fuck up their business somehow in whatever they follow up this up with. And he's still not going to just kill her. You know, he's not that guy. So I'm very curious on what they're going to do. And, you know, I'm not somebody that thinks it needs to come out maybe a year from now. I like the fact that if they take their time, I usually think it's going to turn out better. Sometimes it doesn't. But I at least hope that they, with the success that this has had, especially critically, which was shocking. I think it was in the 80s.
I still can't fucking believe how well this is done critically. And here's the thing. We both love the movie. Is it deserving of that good? I don't know, but it's pretty.
Yeah, I mean, when you know how Rotten Tomatoes works and it just needs a 3 out of 5 to get a tomato, it makes sense to me. And I think what you said earlier is a part of it too. When you have so many years of substandard Saw films, and now you have Saw X, versus if this was the second or third film, I think the surprise factor inflates everybody's and even my own reception of this movie, to where if this was Saw 2 or Saw 3, it'd be like, damn, that was pretty good. But now that it's after 4, 5, 6, 7, Spiral, Jigsaw, you see it and you're like, holy shit.
Well, it makes you look at the other films, even you know, as a huge fan of them, look down on them, because I don't know how you never really 100% developed that concept of the film is based, the series is based on, of testing people who are really pieces of shit, who don't deserve life. And within that, again, this is the guy who loves horror and drama, being able to see what things we can experiment with here. And if there are characters that we switch our minds on, if they survive the games, if they do things, I mean, at its core, that's why I think this franchise works. It's a concept that people resonate with. And this film was so fucking smart to do this and make it fit so well in the world that we know, the character that we know. Shit like this does happen, unfortunately, because there are fucking evil people in this world who will take advantage of those that are vulnerable. And to really be able to let this protagonist, antagonist, whatever you want to call him, run with that and see the moments, how he takes things in and how he sees them. And I just feel like it made me look at his character so much differently. And then also just like little things like just a fanboy moment when he sits up from the blood thing at the end, the trap that he's on. The way I this has never been said, but I know it. The fucking way he sits up is a straight homage to Saw 1 when he gets up off the floor. It's the same shot, it's the same face, it's the same. And I'm like, again, it's 2023, and I get this movie in a fucking theater, and this is happening. I was so ecstatic. I was so happy. I understand people who are like, she just becomes a straight villain and she goes hard. Guys, we have a main character who tortures people and puts them in the most fucked up traps and doesn't consider himself a killer. We kind of had to go here for this movie to go the way that it does. I also think another benefit of the film is when you watch it on other viewings, Charlie Closer's score is completely different than we've had in any other Saw film. And I really, really like just loved what he did with this one. So I think it's going to be interesting. And even with like the Hoffman shit, the way this movie approached it, yes, the bathroom scene after the mid-credits thing was so fan servicey, but it made even him working with him feel grounded. With of course he's going to call him and say there's people he's trying to track down, and it didn't feel hokey. It didn't feel out there. I would be interested to see how they're going to incorporate all of the other people, because like we have the Logans, my least favorite fucking thing in this franchise that I still call bullshit on, that I'm just like so uninterested in. And
I speak for the dead.
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's so out there. But you know, the producer said they've had calls from cast members. Of course they have. They want to get paid. Yeah,
they have 3. They specifically said the number 3. They said we've had 3 people contact us when we were developing this movie that are like, we're in. Whatever the fuck your plans are, we're in. I think it's a very safe. Carrie Elway's very safe bet. Hoffman ain't doing shit outside of Saw, so you know he's in there. And then it's either going to be Logan or there might be somebody on the Spiral side. Maybe I think that's least likely. To me, what would be a really cool concept for a follow up to this? Cecilia, obviously a woman that has a lot of means and a lot of creativity on how to get people together or whatever, is have Cecilia and her group trying to fuck up Jigsaw's world, and it's Jigsaw and all of his apprentices versus them. I don't know where traps come into that storyline, like every single one that they catch. Maybe I'm not a writer for that reason, but I want to see a movie where him and all of his apprentices are all forefront. And I think by doing that, it would be different as well, but also just it would give time and it would give the opportunity to develop out their characters to where maybe you can win me over a little more on Hoffman. Maybe you can win us over on Logan, which we know little to nothing about. Maybe they can give some more stuff to Carrie Elways, where I'm not a huge fan of that twist in Saw 3D because it was so obvious to me. So I like the potential of if I'm giving them my faith, which of how much they surprised me with this one, keep that going and now make me like these characters that you've struggled to get me to like for 8 films. And that would be like the ultimate victory for me.
But you know, like even Carrie Elways, man, like again, I'm the guy who watches most movies and likes performances I see people just shit on because I understand an actor's process. But even him, he's such a hit or miss guy. Like you don't know what he's going to bring to the table. When you look at Saw 3D, I'm like, bro, did you go back and watch your performance in the first film? Like, what do you ever notice? I've never seen anyone talk about it. He has an accent sometimes, like a weird, like, we're so lucky to be a part of your promotional DVD. I'm like, sir, like talk like you like a person like you normally did in the first movie. And I've watched a bunch of his films where sometimes he talks normal and then other times he has weird accent, and I don't know what that's all about.
Very easily for me, and that's why outside of Liar Liar, I don't really like him in any movie that I've seen him in because he always feels turned up way more than the movie calls for. You know, in Saw, he's way too goofy and emotional by the third act, and then in Saw 3D, like it, even if you weren't tipped off to the fact that he's going to be a apprentice because he shows up 7 or 6 movies later, his performance in that one scene is just like the most obvious calling card where, like, just like you said, we're so lucky to be a part. And I'm like, could you be more villainous? Like, what the fuck? Somebody holding up a cue card, like, Be more villainous. Like, what the fuck
Yeah,
is that?
it's really out there, and you know, I
Mhm,
don't know if a lot of people know a reason he wasn't in the franchise for so long might be because of story, but he also had a lawsuit with the producers
mhm.
based on the first film. He was entitled to a percentage of DVD sales, and we know that movie was a fucking smash success, and he had to sue his management company and whole bunch of things, and that finally got settled after years, and that's when he came back. But I do think that there is an opportunity to make things grounded. I mean, I don't know. I feel like if you want to try to make even the lesser sequels better, people always ask, how the fuck did you plan all of this? How did you do all of this? How do you know these people? I think that there is something to, if we know these people all work with him,
Mhm.
that we have them being worked on. Like he's working with them to make a list of shit of when he's gone, that this is going, like, I like the father daughter weirdness between him and Amanda that you feel, and that she's going to do his bidding. And I think you could have that with these other people and really figure out a way to make it grounded. Because, like, dude, I was even thinking during the first viewing, is there even going to be a twist? Like,
Yeah.
are they going to throw out the formula? Because so much of this has been so different. And I'm watching the movie going, I can't believe how fucking solid this is. I can't believe how contained this is. I don't think there's gonna be that twist, you know, and there was, but yeah, I think for sure all three of his apprentices, those actors, I think those are the ones calling them. I think for a fact the producers are scouring Reddit. They've talked about the fact that they do,
Mhm.
seeing what fans are saying and what fans want. And, you know, this movie thankfully was a response to what fans said that they wanted for years. They've seen it worked. Now it's going to be interesting to see how they take that for the
Mhm.
future and where they go with it, because I don't know, man. I don't know how many more movies we're going to have with Tobin Bell.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, if you're watching, producers, I just want to see a teaser poster that's all black with Jigsaw in his red robe as the only thing in color, and behind him, like the fucking Avengers, are just his apprentices
Would
in
be
robes.
fucking amazing. That would be so amazing, man. And just, you know, again, like the fact that it's 2023, it's gonna be 2024. Who the fuck ever thought we would be here with Saw? Like I went to I think it was the 10th anniversary screening years ago in LA at the ArcLight with everyone. They were all there. Carrie Elways, James Wan, Lee Winnells before Furious 7 came out. I remember Wan had his F7 hat on, and
Mhm.
they were all just fucking cool. They did their Q&A. It wasn't like they had security. And afterwards, we all just went up to them and started talking to them, and they were all cool as shit. And I was talking to Lee Winnell because I think at this time I was interning at Blumhouse. I told you I interned there, and that was like my in because he
Mhm.
worked. And I'm like, hey, like I'm an intern. And he was just the nicest fucking guy, man. And I asked him about the sequels, and he has since even said online, he's like, people ask me about Hoffman. Who the hell is he? Like, you know, it became crazy. But if you were here for it, you were here for it. And even to see James Wan put up a post on his Facebook with the Saw X poster being like really excited for this one, and for Kevin Greuter and for all these people, there was something with this movie that everyone acknowledged that it was actually really good.
Mhm.
All the people involved sort of got their just due, because for fans who don't study it at all, Kevin Greuter did not want to do Saw 3D. He was contractually forced into it because he was supposed to direct Paranormal Activity 2, which you could not do because that was Saw's biggest competitor. The original
Yeah.
franchise was supposed to have 8 movies. When Paranormal Activity came out and crushed Saw 6 at the box office, Lionsgate was like, nah, consolidate those 2 into one and wrap it up, because there's a new person in town. And
Mhm.
you know, the fact that he came back and you could tell he was enthusiastic, like this is the movie of a filmmaker who's excited to be there,
Mhm.
who is excited to take these chances. And I think you feel that. I just think sometimes I think ahead, and what I don't want is I don't want to watch the Cody Leach review of Saw 11 and be like, well, you fucked that up. And I'm like, oh God. Like,
I
so
don't want to watch that either. Like, kind of my closing statement as far as Saw, it's my favorite thing in the world. Well, my second favorite thing. My first favorite thing is when I recommend a deep cut or an underknown movie to somebody, and somebody comes back and tells me, "Thank you for introducing me to that. I love that. I would have never heard of it without you." My second favorite thing is when I'm not looking forward to a movie, or if all my alarm bells are ringing and I'm borderline pessimistic, like there's no chance this is going to win me over. Just all the signs are there, the writing's on the wall, and I walk out and I eat my words on camera. I fucking love that, because not only does it show that you can never set your opinion before you walk into a movie, no matter how much experience with films you have, but it also gives me the chance to get everybody else so much more excited. Because it's one thing if I'm already hyped up for it and then I walk out and I tell you it was great. It's another thing when the fan base is hyped up for it and I'm not. And I'm doing a trailer reaction, and the big words on my trailer reaction is same old shit.
Yeah.
And then I walk out of Saw X and I'm like, you guys aren't fucking ready. Like, this is awesome. If it made me say that, I can only imagine how much you're going to love it. Like, that's my favorite thing in the world. And I loved that I was able to do that for this. And it will set up my expectations poorly for the next horror film that I went to go see.
How did this movie play at Fantastic Fest? Was the crowd really was it a great screening? Like,
it was funny, because Fantastic Fest is interesting because it's all horror and genre fans, but there's also a lot of people there that don't like seeing the mainstream stuff. They want it to be as deep cut, foreign, weird, independent as possible. So there was a good number of people, I would say maybe less than a quarter of my theater, that when they put the Saw X logo up and revealed that's what the secret screening was going to be, they left because they were going to try to go see something else. And part of that is probably because they waited to do the secret screening the night before it was going to be publicly released. So there was probably a lot of people that were like, I'm only going to get to see these other movies here. I can go see this shit tomorrow at a regular theater. So that kind of set the tone a little weird. For me, because I wasn't super excited about it, it was the possibility of the secret screening that I was least interested in. The other ones that people were chattering about was Exorcist, Thanksgiving, and Five Nights at Freddy's. All three of those I was more curious about than Saw. So it set it off at a weird tone where it was like, okay, guess we're going to check out a Saw movie. And then when it started, it was a great crowd, because all the moments that hit for me hit for the theater, and it's so much more enjoyable when you get a dark, humorous moment and the crowd laughs, because you're like more enticed to laugh yourself. Some of the good like callback moments or the fan service moments got a cheer. The traps, you'd hear people went, oh my god! And so it was a great crowd to see it in. And it's been a while since I've seen a Saw movie. I don't think I've ever seen a Saw movie with a full theater, actually, because Jigsaw and Spiral, I saw Thursday night showings with a few people there. This was the first time seeing one with a full crowd, and it was awesome.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's so sick. I wish I could have been there for that screening, and happy you got, dude. Look, when you messaged me, I was so ecstatic. I was I texted my other friend who I had talked to, who let's say like works at Lionsgate in some capacity. I was like, I'm ready. And he was just so excited. So yeah, man, we're gonna see. I haven't tracked the box office as well as I normally do. I don't know how well this film has done. That's where I just hope it's done well enough for them to come back again and give us at least another shot in this type of timeline.
I have a hard time believing that they won't make a profit. But beyond that, I would like to assume and hope that the producers of these movies are smart enough to see just the critic and the fan ratings. And even if they took a dip because Jigsaw and Spiral kind of set the amp for this movie down a little bit low, I hope they at least look at that and say, okay, we've got them back. The next one's going to fucking smash. We got to put our work in. And I hope they actually get it to where, because of primarily Tobin Bell's age, they've got it mapped out well enough, or maybe they can shoot the next two back to back, or something to get them just to where they can, 2 years from now we get Saw X2, and then the next year Saw X3, kind of like Halloween Kills and Ends did. Yeah. And to me, that would be best case scenario.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we get Saw 11, there's no doubt in my mind within that we're going to have things we probably don't love, of those little nuggets that are going to be left for Saw 12. Because they're going to want to map it out and try to have an entire thing. But we'll see, man. I think if there's an announcement about it, it will probably be early into the new year after the film does what it does. Because, look at P&A money is a lot. Like, the film doesn't cost a lot, but to market it and get it out there, those executives want to see, not only did you break even, you made something good. So let's hope, man.
Yeah. We shall see. All right, we got a number of super chats in relation to Saw and stuff, so we'll catch up on those.
Cool.
Marcy says, my favorite Saw movie is Spiral. Don't shoot me. No bullets in this gun. I really like Spiral, so I understand.
Yep.
Cody and Joey have a blessed weekend from Ryan Nelson. Thank you, Ryan. We got the Ron. Thank you for that donation. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. We got Gavin Moon saying, hey guys, do you think we will see Logan or Lawrence Gordon in Saw 11? I'm sure Hoffman will be in it. We pretty much just covered that, but yeah, I think Hoffman, I would say 100% chance. Not just because of that mid-credit scene, but because I don't see that guy do anything outside of the Saw movies. I would put Lawrence Gordon at 70%, and I'd put Logan at like 50. So I think safe bet that they're going to eventually assemble all these guys together, either for the next film or across the next 2 films.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you disagree. I mean, it seemed like we pretty much figured that's the only way to go.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
The Ron with another one. Thank you. Jay Aaron, where was this love of horror on the circle, Joey?
Here's the funny thing, man, for people who don't know, because if you follow my social, you see how I'm dressed. I dress like this every single day for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Part of being in the industry is having to have things like a wardrobe that is camera friendly. If you go on camera for a show or for something, you cannot wear anything with any logos. It could be something as small as a Nike swoosh. You can't, it's not cleared. So it's incredibly frustrating. I spend all of my money on horror merch, vinyl, every Blu-ray, everything, but I have to spend so much more money on quote unquote regular clothes. So when I go on television or do press or red carpets, I can look presentable and professional because I am extremely professional with my actual career, but it's hard because there's never any opportunities to talk about the shit that I love. Even with The Circle, you know, I remember Netflix called me in before the show was released, and they were basically telling me everyone's going to hate you in the beginning, like by the way we edited you, but they're going to love you by the end because it was season 1. We can't have anyone know that, you know, you're going to win. No one's going to expect it. And man, they were 100% correct. The way they edited me, I would remember looking at Twitter and it would be like episode 1, get this fake Italian Jersey Shore Guido the fuck out of here. Episode 8, it would be like, we love him. I will die for him. Protect him at all costs. And I was like, fuck, they really know what they're doing. And I think a part of that is I am a big, loud, goofy personality. When you go back to those early episodes, that is me. That is my sense of humor. But once you see my actual heart and who I am, it makes you look at it differently. It is frustrating, though, because when you go on these shows, I would love to be able to talk about the things that I love and the things that I'm into. But even if you do, I just know in my head, I'd be like, oh, this is going on the chop. This is getting cut. This is not being there. My last fucking show I did, I opened up about being a recovering drug addict, alcoholic. I went deep multiple times. It's not mentioned once in the show. Like, it's just the way it goes sometimes. But I do say my favorite thing has been horror fans who somehow watch reality TV following my socials and reaching out to me and being like, wait, you're one of us? And I'm like, yeah, dude.
That's how I was. I was like, this isn't real. I don't watch reality stuff. He doesn't know me. And then,
bro, even at the fucking Halloween 45 convention, how many fans were coming up to me and being like, why are you here? And I'm like, this is my this is my favorite franchise of all time. This is the reason I'm in the business. Is this like I've told, like, you know, this is why I wanted to be a horror director before anything. I grew up idolizing Carpenter and Craven. So I will never grow up. I will never stop doing the things that I do. I do look forward to hopefully moving forward in my career so I can try to become a poster boy of being a fan of horror, because there is a place where that can help a lot with my own career and with the genre itself. Like, even, dude, when I get called into fucking like cool screenings of shit like that, it's things that haven't even been announced, stuff like that, it makes my life. Like, that is still the little film fan of me from Rochester, New York, dreaming about moving to LA and being a filmmaker. You know what I mean? Like, last year I went to go see Pearl with Ty West, and we're at this little screening room in Hollywood on Sunset, and the movie ends and we're all hanging out for a mixer. I'm a weirdo because I can meet the biggest celebrities in the world and I can go up, talk, network, do my thing. I meet Ty West and I can't fucking speak. And I'm so fucking nervous because I'm like, I'm a legitimate fan. I love your work. You actually mean something to me. So my friends were like, I was at the Grove, which is a place here in LA, a couple weeks ago, and Ben Affleck and J-Lo were there. And it was cool. No, I feel nothing, right? Say what's up. If I fucking were to see Tobin Bell, I would, again, my hands would get clammy. I'd get nervous. And I think it's exciting that even at almost 30 years old, I'm still a little kid who loves this shit. I think you're the same way as well. And I think we need to keep that shit going, man. It's fun to be a fan and love the things that you love.
Yeah, see, the way that I haven't met a ton of celebrities, but I've only met them at like cons and stuff like that. And I'm the guy where I'm standing in line and I'm like, I'm thinking and I'm almost like rehearsing my lines, trying to think of something to say that they have not heard 75,000 times over the past 2 days. So, like, I was in line to meet Carl Weathers earlier this year. And I'm like, I'm not asking shit about Rocky or Predator. I can't. And it's like I got to think of something else. And like I even pulled up Wikipedia. I'm like, what the fuck else has he been in that I'm blanking on right now? And I saw that I forgot that he was in like 2 or 3 episodes of The Shield. And I love The Shield. And so I asked him about The Shield. And then he's talking to me for like a full 2 minutes because I'm not saying like, hey, what's your favorite Rocky movie? And so that stuff is kind of where I geek out a bit. And I haven't really gotten like nervous where I get tongue tied, but I try my best to be somebody that hopefully they'll remember. And so even whenever I don't want to take it off the wall, but like I got a picture with the Screencast and even Henry Winkler in March.
Yeah.
Same con. And so I have never paid the ridiculous amount of money that they have you pay for these photo ops, but it kind of crushed my soul a bit when I was in line and I was seeing how fast they get you in and out. Like there's no conversation whatsoever. You can't even say hi, love your work. And so I was like, fuck, dude, I just spent like $500 on this picture. Like, you can't let me just turn around and like shake their hand or something. So I'm sitting here trying to think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I'm next in line and like, all right, when we say go, you're going to stand in front of Matthew Lillard. You're going to look at that. It's going to pop and then you go. And I'm like, okay. So they said, go. Stood in front of Matt. He put his hands on my shoulders, which was crazy, and popped off to the side. Pop, the picture goes, and Jamie Kennedy's behind me. I turn around and I go, you've been next. And then I walk, and he's like, yes. And then I walked out.
That's
so even if I didn't get a conversation, I'm like, he's going to remember that you got X'd guy, hopefully.
Dude, I'm actually, it's funny. I'm actually friends with Jamie now, like not friends, but friendly, like, you know, but I met him when I was a teenager in New York City, probably again, 12, 13 years old. This is when he was dating Jennifer Love Hewitt. And we would go there for Thanksgiving. And it was this hotel, used to be called the London in Manhattan. And I remember always being like, oh, I can meet celebrities here, like, because people stay here. And he was there with Jennifer Love Hewitt. I did not give a shit about Jennifer. I loved Jay. I was the biggest Scream fan. And I was always a legitimate fan of his. I think he is still severely underrated. And this was when there were so many rumors of a Scream 4. And I'll never forget walking up to him, and he was hammered. Like at this time, and I was like, hey, Jamie, can I get a picture with you? And he says, yeah. And I'm like, hey, man, there's rumors you're going to be in Scream 4. Is there any truth to it? He's like, nah, man, they killed me in the third one. And I was like, I didn't have the heart to tell him, bro, you died in the second one. What are you saying? Like, yeah. And then I remember his parents were there. I knew who his dad was from his old MTV show, his rap about being a rapper. So I walked out to smoke a cigarette with his dad. Like, let me try to get in. I was like, yeah, one of my favorite celebrities is staying here. He's like, oh, yeah, who's that? I was like, oh, Jamie Kennedy. He's like, oh, that just happens to be my son. And I was like, oh really? No. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, Jamie, he's cool as fuck, man. But I get that because, again, I think I'm a nobody. I don't want anyone to watch this think I think I'm anyone. I know I'm a nobody. However, when someone wants to come up to me and ask me about anything, you do get asked the same a million things over and over and over. And to go with what you were saying, for a lot of these people who do so many conventions, I can only imagine how hard it is to answer the same thing over and over, because you can't be a dick about it. Like, people are paying and you should be excited. However, we're all human. It is hard to say the same shit over and over and over again.
I'll tell you, the world's best at that has got to be Henry Winkler. In my limited experience of meeting celebrities, that man made me feel like I was the only person in that entire con.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the most unique thing in the world to say to him. I just tried to go a little bit more heartfelt. But he was shaking hands at the people that in his line while they were waiting. Thank you for coming. Thank you for waiting. It'll be just a few minutes. And I went up to talk to him, and it was funny because, like, I was next in line, and he put his hand behind my back, and he's like, "Which one would you like?" As far as all the pictures that are there to get signed. So I picked one for my dad, and then I said, "I'm going to get a picture too, if that's okay." Oh, yes, it'd be a pleasure. And I was telling him, I said, "I just want to let you know," I said, my dad was always been a huge fan of yours. This is the picture for him. And I grew up. He would show me Happy Days. And then, of course, I got a little bit older and you were in quite a few of the Adam Sandler movies. I said, now I'm a huge Barry fan and I know you as Mr. Cousineau. I said, so your work has been important to me my entire life. And so that was kind of my sympathetic moment, at least go a little more heartfelt with it. But like I said, that guy made me feel like the thousands of people there were just gone. It was just me and him for a few minutes. So.
And I guarantee you made his entire day, because you also have to remember so many fans are nervous and they go up and it's very generic. Like, dude, I can tell you just from I've risked everything in my life, sacrificed everything, left my family, been through so much shit just for the love of film and cinema, and knowing that there's no guarantee of anything in my life that is going to be that I can make a living doing this, let alone for the rest of my life. So for someone who has done so well for themselves to sit there and hear how much their work has meant to someone, that's the shit that's not generic, where you're like, again, for him, he's just a guy. Yes, he's Henry Winkler, but he's a guy. When he goes home and takes a shower and sit down and reflects at the end of that night, like, dude, he feels like he's done something that's mattered for the art that he loves. That so often in this game, people make you feel stupid for loving it and sacrificing what you do because it's a business.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that's really dope, man. That's really cool. I love that story.
Yeah, I love it. Next one, we got, hey, Cody, just finished watching Saw X. I'm outside the cinema. Hell yeah. And I just wanted to say I absolutely loved it. Top 3 of the franchise for me it is. Welcome to the madness, Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes, sir.
That was good timing, sir. Christian Nichols, can't wait to see Amanda's turn to the dark side. Yeah, I'm interested. Like I said, the trailer, I was just like, okay, whatever. Of course, they're going to have her in. And I was shocked how much I was invested in her storyline. All right. So we talked for about an hour on Saw X. Very positive, very happy, very hopeful for the future. High-fiving each other as Saw fans. Casual fan, hardcore fan. Just for people call me out. You're not a Saw fan. You hate half of them. Now we're going to change tones a bit. And there's a part of me that's slightly disappointed that we can't have a back and forth of what we liked, what we didn't like. We're going to be very much in agreement here. So if you're a fan of Exorcist believer, we might frustrate you with our negativity, but honesty sometimes is negative. So The Exorcist. This is a franchise that I've never really been all that crazy about. I love the third one. The third one is my favorite. That's one of my favorite horror films. The first one is a movie. I have a phrase that I say, a movie that I respect more than I enjoy. I love the legacy of it. I understand its impact. I respect how ballsy and crazy and just vicious that it was, especially for the 70s, to the point where how many exorcism movies have we had since then try to do it, and none of them have been able to do it. So The Exorcist is a movie that I definitely understand its legacy. It's a movie that I like, but it's never been one of my favorites. The rest of the franchise, The Exorcist, even loving Exorcist 3, I've always said The Exorcist is a movie that never made sense to be a franchise. That's a one and done story. There's nothing else to go there unless you're going to force it. And so when maybe a year ago, they announced that Blumhouse will, after Halloween Ends had wrapped up, they announced that David Gordon Green and Blumhouse were going to be teaming up yet again to do a trilogy following up the original, The Exorcist. Immediately, everything about that I hated. First of all, again, like I said, follow it up how? If you told me you were doing one movie, I wouldn't have faith in you. You're already planning a trilogy to follow up the story? Doing what? And I'm somebody that likes the Halloween trilogy. I have my issues with it, but I was not somebody that was crazy about it, was not somebody that hated it. And when I looked at the strengths of what David Gordon Green and Blumhouse were able to do with the Halloween films, and the ones that resonated with most fans, mentally, I could not fit that to The Exorcist. It just didn't make sense to me, because the things that made that Halloween trilogy such a pop culture moment, especially the Halloween 2018, you can't apply that to Exorcist. There's no Laurie Strode to have come back in some triumphant return. There's no rights to be wronged when you're following The Exorcist. I mean, I didn't understand, aside from some kind of a corporate producer saying that this is going to work because it worked the last time, why they were doing this. Then the trailer came out, and the trailer was literally like if I typed ChatGPT and said, show me a Blumhouse David Gordon Green Exorcist film, it was 100% what that was in my head, and that was not a good thing. But after seeing Saw X and eating my words so deliciously, I walked out of that and I said, okay, maybe I'll walk into Exorcist and I'll be like, holy shit, this is actually really cool. And my God, like it didn't help that all the reviews and reactions were coming out and there was so many negative ones, even from people that I almost get frustrated with how just habitually positive they are all the time when I know that's not their honest thoughts because they want to get pull quoted. They want to end up on the trailer and the fucking poster. But even the people that were being positive, it felt more like they were apologizing for their uncle's movie than actually expressing why they liked the film. It was just like I don't want to be too hard on it. I've never made a movie, so this was good. And that's kind of the tone of it. And then I walked into this thing with low expectations. And somehow I walked out and it was even below what I was expecting it to be. They did everything right. That's just like a gimme, like a participation trophy where it's like, okay, it was shot well. It looked nice. The acting was pretty good. There was some interesting visuals here and there. But for me, it was like, this is just like all of the dozens and dozens and dozens of other Exorcist ripoffs. And I've seen better in some of the Exorcist ripoffs. And the way that you're tethering this to the Exorcist name and you're borrowing that legacy and you're borrowing the good faith and the excitement of the fans was like the most lazy, cynical approach that I've ever seen, where they get Ellen Burstyn's character shoehorned into this movie, literally has no place, completely disrespects the character and disrespects elements of the first film that we'll get into, and then ends it on this cameo to tease where they're going to go in like the most fucking heartless, soulless way possible. And so I walk out and I'm like, okay, this was clearly not a movie for me. I was already pretty sold that it was not going to be for me. But how the fuck can Exorcist fans like this? And there's been a few, to be fair, there have been a few. And it's left me in a place to where I'm so confused. Like, obviously, they've spent an assload of money. Universal spent $400 million to get the rights to this. They spent $30 million at Blumhouse to make this. They're going to make the next one at least. But how the fuck could you fumble the ball so hard when you have a planned trilogy? And for a company like Blumhouse, that they do some great things. I think they do some pretty terrible things, and they do a lot of shit in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
How they could do something like this that's just so obvious and cynical, I've never seen them do that before. Because Blumhouse, to me, whether I like it or hate it, they're usually very creative, and they're usually very unique with the things that they do. And this just felt like a bunch of dudes sitting around a coffee table in suits with checkboard, like, just, this is what we need to do. And then we need to recreate this from Halloween. And it just, the whole thing felt corporate and like a product to me. And I hate that more than a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll pass it over to you. You could set the stage with how you feel about the franchise. But that was the biggest thing, is like, this isn't just a movie that I dislike. This is a movie that insults me as a movie fan, because it feels like somebody just trying to milk money out of me for product.
Yeah, this is such a weird, hard one for me to answer for a lot of different reasons. I've spent, since we knew we were going to do this, how am I going to actually speak about this publicly? Because I always never try to be a hater. Like, truly, I never try to be a hater, because I know how hard it is to get something made. I know how hard people work, put everything into it. And this was one of the rare occasions where the hype was so bad, and I somehow think it wasn't bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
I really was so let down in so many, like, honestly, still I'm like, I feel like an abuse victim. I'm like, how did this happen? Like, what did we deserve this? Like, what the fuck? Like, it is so poorly done in every capacity. And again, because I spend so much time watching what supposed film fans think of films, where most people hate everything, I usually really like everything. And even if I don't, I always have things that I like about it, because I could see what they're going for. I think The Exorcist, the original film, in my opinion, is truly in a league of its own of being the scariest film of all time. I got my cross on. I grew up Catholic. I'm not really Catholic. I mean, I am. Went to Catholic school my entire life. That was a film that, when you heard that title growing up, it scared you just hearing The Exorcist. And still to this day, if I talk to my mom on FaceTime or my dad, If I say that title, they're like, make the sign of the cross. And my parents aren't insane religious people. It's just there was that thing of this movie taps into something that goes beyond what a movie does or is, which is normally just entertainment. And watching the movie at way too young of an age, which was great because it terrified me, and growing up with it and seeing it, it's not a great horror film. It's a great film. It's in that one of the best films of all time for me type of film, where I think why horror is so brilliant when it's done right is you could take any concept that's solid and put it in any genre and it will work. There's a version of that movie that's a comedy. There's a version of that movie that's just a straight drama, no horror. But that movie has stood the test of time. I think that it is a testament to William Friedkin, because he was one of those old school directors who broke literal laws, did things that you're not allowed to do today. But I think there's something to be said of, you have to go to these places sometimes to get what you need, because film is forever. And I know a lot of people today are like, Stanley Kubrick would never work. Probably true, but there's a reason Stanley Kubrick is Stanley fucking Kubrick. He could be insane. He could be crazy. His movies speak for themselves. Yeah. They truly do. I think that first film is horrifying. It's truly the scariest film of all time for me. It's one of those franchises that has never made sense as a franchise to me. I'd never have seen The Exorcist 2. I know I watched your review of it last night.
Oh, it's so bad.
I've heard. I didn't get the Scream Factory Blu-ray because that was when I packed up my place, so I wasn't buying Blu-rays because they were all just going in storage. I love the third movie as you do. I think the third movie is fucking fantastic. I think it is so fucking good. It is slow. It takes its time. Brad Dourif is phenomenal. They're weird relationships like that you just would never see today in film. But again, it wasn't supposed to be an Exorcist film. It wasn't titled Exorcist 3 until the studio was like, we need to cash in on The Exorcist. So is it part of the franchise? Sure. But in my mind, it's like it was never supposed to be. The other ones, I think I saw Dominion. I know Paul Schrader, they reshot it, all that. Like, it's never made sense as a franchise. The other one that's never made sense as a franchise to me is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The first film, you did it. It's there. It's never going to be better. Even being the franchise guy, the way they've taken the sequels, it didn't never work for me. So when this film got announced, it was a real mixed bag for me, because I really am never a hater of anything. I'm so open to what a filmmaker is going to give me, what they're going to do. And I think the thing that's interesting today with cinema, because social media and the public has such a finger on the pulse, is we never know the way it's going to go. And I think sometimes movies take on a life that I don't understand. That you don't know. An example is going back to Halloween 2018. Halloween is my favorite franchise of all time. I love every fucking entry, even Resurrection, which is terrible, just because I love that world and those characters. Halloween 2018 became so beloved. It became such a fucking success that still to this day, I don't know how. It's probably my least favorite of that trilogy, because it takes no risk besides the Dr. Sartain thing. It's the most by the numbers, we need to get the franchise back on track movie, which, yeah, it's great. I can watch it. But when you look at the love that movie, like that movie made almost $1 billion. That's why we're getting all of these legacy sequels. It tapped into something that the public bought. Even Jamie Lee Curtis has talked about her supercut montage of people cutting her saying the word trauma, because how she would do press and talk about trauma. She, after Now It's All Said and Done, of course, she was doing a thing and she was like, yeah, I seen the supercut online. That movie made $700 million. So fuck you. And, you know, it worked. And when that movie was announced, I was ecstatic. I love Blumhouse. I interned there. I love the people there, because I know there's so many people who are really into the genre and wanting to make great things, and also giving filmmakers a chance to do what they want. Like, a studio like that does not exist. And the fact they were bringing Jamie Lee back, they were bringing Nick Castle back, David Gordon Green, everyone's like, why is he making this? He's the comedy guy. Why can't you don't think that comedy people love horror? You don't think they love every genre? Like, this is awesome. It made me so excited, dude. That movie came out, became what it became. The Exorcist gets announced. It was unanimous. This is trash. This is fucking trash from the start. And that to me is the unknown that we just don't know. How is the public going to respond? To me, there's no way they could have responded positively about Halloween. It could have been Jamie Lee's coming back again. We don't need this. We've had this. Oh, another thing.
That was me.
Yeah. Yeah. But for the most part, people bought into it. This was one of those things where everyone was like, this is going to be fucking terrible. This sounds so fucking stupid. I don't want this. This sounds awful. And I'm kind of mixed, to tell you the truth, because I am a filmmaker in this business, a struggling person. And I do know you have to, if you want to be successful in this business, you have to have your foot in both worlds. So there's the part of me where if I'm David Gordon Green, fuck yeah, I'm selling out. Everyone talks about sell out. If you were in this business, you lived in LA, you were struggling like all of us do, you would fucking sell out the moment you can.
I get that all the time whenever I have like a sponsorship or something, like sell out. I'm like, this is my job. If you could trade places with me, you fucking would. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's where I'm where I always, I've talked to you before about my love of franchises and bad sequels. I'm like, there's so many struggling people out there who have a voice. If we love things, let's keep having them, and let's let people put their spin on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very optimistic because was I excited for a new Exorcist film? No, but I'm like, no, this makes complete sense. Of course, they're going to take the Halloween formula and say, let's do it again. Mm-hmm. And let's do it with another franchise. The thing that was exciting for me about it was with Halloween, because it is such a franchise and there is so many films and so many fans who love that world and that character, there are boxes you have to check. Whether you love David Gordon Green's first movie or Rob Zombie's first movie, you see when they're checking the boxes because they have to. The Exorcist was an unknown, man, of what are we going to get with this, because none of the sequels have really worked. This is really exciting. And when the trailer came out, I was like, looks fine. Like, I don't know. Like, it just, I think because everyone was so unanimously negative, it made me be more positive because, dude, like, I've been literally in the car with a filmmaker when their film has opened on 3,000 screens and they're sitting there at their phone looking at a terrible Rotten Tomatoes score and looking at people hating it and looking at me with tears in their eyes going, is it that fucking bad? Mm-hmm. And it's most of the time not. And it's like, I get the side of it that I don't think most people do. So I tried to be very positive about it. And like I said, I always find shit I love. Man, I walked into this movie so optimistic. I loved Halloween Ends. I still think fans are so wrong about that movie. I think that's a perfect example of what I mean of Halloween Ends is kind of a reboot of Halloween. Fuck it as the end of that trilogy. You can watch that movie of that being a reboot instead of 2018 and it works just as fine. He's not checking any boxes. He's doing what he wants in that movie. This movie, The Exorcist Believer, I don't know what happened. I all jokes aside, I don't know how this film exists in the way that it does. I leaned over to my friend during the screening and I was like, I don't even want to blame David Gordon Green. And maybe I'm wrong for that, but I just feel like this is a guy being pulled.
It feels like it's directed by committee.
Yeah, it's being pulled. And look at, dude, when you're the face of that and you do have to answer to so many people that no one will ever know, it's fucking really hard. But even when you look at the script, man, the writing was so poor. It was so bad. I get the studio saying, Ellen Burstyn, we need the Jamie Lee Curtis thing. We need to bring her back. I know how they think. We need her face on this and that. She's never been Laurie Strode. She never will be. That first movie does not work because of Ellen Burstyn. That first movie works because there's something terrifying about the unknown and these people being thrown into this. And it poses so many questions about religion, about life, about evil. So many things that make that movie what it is. This film, I don't know why he made this movie. There is nothing there. I mean, at its core, you look at that monologue at the end by Ann Dowd, I think the neighbor, and you're like, this is like Lifetime movie writing of like, we be a community who comes together and we believe and I'm like, this is not real. Like,
Did it feel at all like that was David Gordon Green saying, "Oh, you didn't like it when I did that community shit in Halloween Kills and Ends? Well, I'm gonna do it again."
no, I've heard a lot of people say that. And it's not just because those movies work for me, even if they don't work completely. I didn't feel that. I'll be honest. I would have liked to felt like that because I would have feel like, oh, I see a point of view, a direction. I didn't see any point of view in this movie, and
Mhm.
I'm not trying to be a dick about it, man. But like, I've heard so many people say, the first act really works for me. I really like the first act. Nothing worked from the moment we started in Haiti. I'm like, this doesn't feel good. This
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. Like, dude, again, going back to the first film when you open up, where's that first film open? It's like Iraq or somewhere when they're digging the fossils. Like,
Mhm.
still to this day, I don't know. There's nothing scary, but it's something terrifying, even about
Ominous.
that. Yeah, like there's something scary there. You feel, and that's something to me that I love about filmmaking is between action and cut. For whatever reason, something is captured that you can never try to do. And with this movie, man, it was truly awful. Um, I could feel the studio notes. I could feel what they were trying to do. I just I do like I still am sitting here at a loss for words because I cannot believe that this movie is what it is. The only
Mhm.
positives I can really think about it because I try to always look for them. I think that the makeup effects by Christopher Nelson were great, but he's phenomenal. So that's to be expected. I think Leslie Odom Jr. was good. I think the little girls were fine. Like all the actors, I don't shit on actors like most people do because I'm like, you're only as good as the material you're given, and with that
Yeah.
material, there's certain times you have to play things a certain way because of the writing. It's just the overall writing, man. Like, don't you just sit there even thinking about it and go, how is this in the same franchise
It
as the
felt to
original?
me like they took a Exorcist, like a generic exorcism demon possession movie script that was sitting around the office, and they dusted it off, and they shoved Ellen Burstyn in there and Reagan in there and said, "This is the Exorcist sequel."
Mm-hmm.
Because The Exorcist, and part of the reason why I never had faith in this is because that movie has been ripped off so many times that there's no room for a legitimate canonized sequel to go because all the ripoffs have already explored every direction you could possibly go that
Mm-hmm.
would make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so even when you watch this, it just feels like, okay, we're gonna retread some ground with, we're opening up in a foreign land with the dogs fighting,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have a innocent child that has taken over and a parent wondering what the hell they're gonna do. And then you get into the second act and Ellen Burstyn comes in and it's just like, why are you here? You have
Mm-hmm.
no place in this story. The lines that you're giving, like the one that she gives that everybody has been ripping to shreds about when they call back to the first film and she goes, I think that I wasn't allowed in the room because I wasn't a part of the patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
You got stuff like that in there.
Huh.
That's just like I'm one of those people that I get so fucking tired of hearing everybody scream woke about everything. If it's
Yep,
got a
me too.
black person in the lead, it's woke. If it's got a gay character somewhere in the background, it's woke.
Yep.
And I get so nauseated hearing that word constantly that it infuriates me even more when I see a movie pull something that deserves that criticism. And
Mm-hmm.
this movie pulls it twice, in my opinion, where you got that line that just has no place in the movie. It doesn't do anything to serve her character, and it's full on either misunderstanding or disrespect to the original film.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the third act, and I'm not religious whatsoever, but I know that, especially if you are Catholic, this movie is very much close to home.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie takes the approach of the Catholic Church are kind of dicks because they're like, we're not going to help these little girls. And the
Mm-hmm.
one Catholic priest is there. You're instructed to not help them. So they get the witch doctor and the Buddhist and everybody else to do like the Avengers of exorcisms to come in because the Catholic Church wouldn't help. And that felt so much to me like a response because nowadays Christianity, unfortunately, is very much tied to extreme right wing America.
Yep. Of
It
course.
felt very much like them saying, "Fuck
You're
you" to those.
racist, you're homophobic, you're a Trump supporter. I live in LA, trust me, I see it
Yes,
with
yes.
everything. It's everything you said, especially with religion like
Mhm.
Catholicism or Christianity, always.
And that felt like the movie studio saying, well, we can't prop up Christianity or Catholicism as the hero of the movie. We got to make it the community, the people, all the different races and religions and beliefs. And that just felt so fucking stupid to me.
I mean, but this is where I even wonder. I mean, you're 100% correct, but
Mhm.
go back to the original Exorcist film, and I feel like you always have people. Do you ever feel like people know something's great, like
Mhm.
they get it, but they don't really understand why it's great, like the levels to it, right? Like
Yes.
an example would be The Sopranos for me. Like everyone knows that's a great show. Like
Mhm.
they know it's one of the best ever writing, acting. Being an Italian American growing up, that show I know why it's great. I get what they're saying, what they're doing. With The Exorcist, something you don't hear people talk about very often is, and this was nothing in this film, you deal with priests who are having a crisis of faith, and something there that is so, I think, universal about someone being at a crossroads with their own faith and something they've dedicated their life to. But in that movie, the devil wins. It's not a happy ending, and people always talk about it like it is, and I'm like, do you not realize the ending, that he gets Pazuzu in him and then commits suicide? He is a priest, he is Catholic. You look at religion, we're told if you commit suicide, you go to hell.
Mhm.
It's a sin to kill yourself. In that movie, he literally sacrifices his life and then commits suicide. So if you're going off of the basis of religion that this character dedicated their life to, he's in hell. Not saying he is, but if you go off of that viewpoint that the movie takes, the devil wins.
Yeah.
That's fucking so layered and deep and something to chew on and think about. And what does it really mean? What is freaking saying? I think one of the worst things sometimes as a filmmaker is having a viewpoint. I know everyone says you should because it's your movie. I think your job is to present things as honestly as possible and let the audience really figure it out for themselves from that point. There was nothing in this movie that had anything that made me think, anything that made me really leave a theater and think, what was David Gordon Green trying to say? What was he trying to do? There is something terrifying about religion, in
Mhm.
any religion. There is something to me so universal about, you can be between light and evil, and you could tap into something that can come into our own world and shake the foundation of everything that we know and believe. And to me, with this film, there was such a missed opportunity to go back and tell a great story, because I agree, at the end of the day, we've seen a million possession films. The Exorcist wrote the book. It will, you have, if I'm David Gordon Green, The Exorcist is up here on the shelf. We know this is an impossible place to get to. No matter what we make, it's never going to be this. That being said, we need to put our spin on it, because there's something in screenwriting about, it's called delivering on the promise of the premise, which is basically, if you buy a ticket to The Exorcist, you better fucking have an exorcism, and a
Mhm.
goddamn good one. However, within that, you can do the things that you want to do. And that's where I'm like, yeah, we've had a million exorcism movies. One that sticks out to me that I fucking love is, have you ever seen The Last Exorcism?
I love that movie too.
Love it. It's brilliant. It's such a smart approach to that genre. It flips it on its head, still gives you what you want,
Mhm.
leaves you questioning things. It's so goddamn good.
Yes.
What did they do in this movie? What what was what was explored? What
Mhm.
was talked about? What made you think? What did it try to do? Like, again, you can hate Halloween Ends. You can't doubt that the man took a fucking swing. Like, he was doing things.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I really want to know how anyone loves this movie, because by the time we got to the actual exorcism scene, I was so bored. I was so bored. This
I was
movie
too.
felt like it dragged for 5 hours. Talking about Carrie Elways, I don't know if you remember, there was a movie that came out right when COVID was like coming to an end and we can go back to theaters. It was a horror film called The Unholy.
Mm.
It's a really bad movie. It's really bad. However, this made me think of The Unholy, and it makes I prefer The Unholy to this, because it's bad and it's fun and it's like, oh my god, what am I watching? This
Mhm.
was fucking dull.
Yeah.
There was nothing happening. There was nothing being explored. And I'm just still sitting there and I'm like, fuck, what went wrong? Because it's rare for me to leave a movie and really be like, I can't think of anything redeemable here. And when it got to that Reagan cameo, I was like, fuck you. I literally said, fuck you out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm like, fuck you. Like, this is so, it makes me so mad because we're not going to have Ellen Burstyn forever. Yes, she's made no argument in the press letting people know she did not want to do this movie for all the reasons that everyone knows.
I love that she did that too.
Yeah, but within that, you can really do something cool. You can have something that's worth the while. Like, think of this, dude. You have Linda Blair and Ellen Burstyn on screen together again for the first time, really, since that original film. That should be a moment in horror history.
Yeah.
That should be something that we're like, fuck, man. Yes, like it should make you feel. The fact that I haven't really seen anyone excited about it to me is like, oh, this is one of those cases of the audience is it they know they're in on it, and that rarely fucking happens.
Yeah, and I don't really understand. I mean, unless there was some kind of a contractual issue that I would be not privy to, it felt like Reagan was not the primary legacy character in this movie because they've already committed to two more. Like they're trying to save that for the second movie.
Well, also
like Ellen,
audiences don't know who Linda Blair is. Like if we're talking from a corporate level of marketing and checking your boxes for dollars, Linda Blair was a little girl when she made that movie. So the audience isn't going to see her and be like, oh, it's Reagan. To studio executives, they're going to see Ellen Burstyn and be like, oh, it's her. Even though no one associates that film with her. That's the way. And to me, that's why they did that. Like, I don't know if you've seen Linda Blair when the film was announced, was asked on Twitter, are you coming back? And she was like, no one's called me. Literally, like not deflecting, like no one called her. And they were like, oh, we didn't think she wanted to be a part of it because of, how negatively she's spoken about it. Like clearly they went to Ellen Burstyn many times to get her. I just think that they did not want to include her and then sort of had to after the fact. And you could tell that was it felt like a total reshoot of like, oh, we need a moment in here because of Reagan. And then let's just even get into the story. Like the fact that you go through that first film, the most earth-shattering story possibly in horror history and cinema, and then you ruin the legacy by Reagan hasn't talked to me in 30 years because I wrote a book, and it's just like
such a manufactured drama to have that scene at the end have any impact, and it still didn't.
No impact. And nothing against Ellen Burstyn. She didn't want to be there. She got the bag. She's putting zero effort in, the entire film. I mean, she's really bad in the movie, but I don't really blame her. She doesn't care. You could tell. Also, little things like, correct me if I'm wrong. I said this to some friends. The score wasn't really ever in the film. Like
one scene, whenever it was, it was right about the second act where somebody was going to the Catholic Church for something. I don't remember if it was Leslie Odom Jr. or if it was the neighbor, but it played the Exorcist score in like a more updated synth thing. But that's the only scene, because I even said it in my review. I was like, that score was actually really cool as an updated thing, but it's not prevalent throughout the movie at all.
I don't remember it once. I mean, the thing I think of it's like there's three movies for me that I think of the theme. I think of The Exorcist, Halloween, and Phantasm, of just brilliant fucking scores. By the time we got to the credits, I was like, how do we not have the score in this movie? I mean, immediately you think back to the first film, there's that scene when Ellen Burstyn's walking home, first act. And it's like, you can feel it's like a fall day, the sun's shining, and that score is playing. Every time I watch that movie, that's when I get the goosebumps of like, oh, fuck, this is cinema. Like there's nothing being said. There's a character walking down the street with a piece of amazing music and you fucking feel it and it's brilliant and you love it. How do you make an Exorcist film and not overuse the score, at least to fucking make the film have some character to where, dude, by the time we got to the credits and, the font came up with whatever that font is called, the Exorcist font, I was like, fuck you. Like literally like, fuck you. This is not an Exorcist movie. This is not an Exorcist film. It feels disrespectful to have that font on your credits. And I don't know how much you followed of the behind the scenes stuff. I remember hearing well over a year ago that the movie was testing really bad. Like it was testing really
I always
poorly.
hear that, but I don't know. You might have more reliable channels than I do. I usually hear that through Twitter and other creators, and it's very hard to put any eggs in those baskets because sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. And so I usually just assume that it's wrong until I see somebody official say it. Like even yesterday when we were hearing from the moment I woke up, A24's got Halloween. And I put on my tweet, I was like, I'm not putting any kind of emotion or commitment into this until I hear the Hollywood Reporter or Variety report it. But I'm hearing whispers that A24 got Halloween. And then 2 hours later, what happened? And it's the same way with those reports about, Aquaman tested horribly and, this tested out the roof. And I never know.
You're right. Certain times when it's like that, it's wrong. I think other times it could be right. I mean, there's other things that film fans say that just get me really angry. Like when a film gets put back into production, right? And back for reshoots, and everyone's like, oh, it's got to be bad that they're reshooting. I'm like, fucking idiots. Do you know how hard it is to make a movie? You have 12 hours a day. If you go over, it's time and a half, which means you have to pay thousands upon thousands. A lot of times you rush. You don't get things. You have to cut things from the script, or things don't work like you thought it did. So it makes sense to go back and reshoot. However, in today's world, any movie that reshoots, it must be a piece of shit. I was hearing all of these things about The Exorcist. I think maybe that's why I hated it so much. I was so optimistic about it, where everyone was so negative. And after being at Blumhouse, I've been in test screenings where I'm seeing a movie test with a focus group. I'm hearing the conversations of how things are going to go. And I understand the value of reshooting and making a film test well. However, I heard nothing good about this, but how it was testing. I know they reshot, but all of these things are all typical for Blumhouse films. Nothing works. Nothing works. Nothing is strong. Nothing has a point of view. Nothing feels scary. I mean, and I don't know how much you know about William Friedkin, one of the most outspoken filmmakers.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't give a fuck. David Gordon Green talked publicly about, being upset that he died because he reached out to Friedkin, and Friedkin wanted nothing to do with the movie, of course, because why would he? He was rich and didn't give a fuck and says whatever he wants to say, but was going to watch it with him. And David Gordon Green was saying it's really upsetting because even if he didn't like it, he could have learned from him. But I'm like, dude, how could you show this to William Friedkin? Like, what the fuck would he have said? What would that conversation have been like? Because I don't want to speak for anyone who I don't know, and I don't know David Gordon Green. I've never met him. Think he's a fucking great filmmaker and really takes swings. I just cannot see a world where I would sit and talk with him about this film that he would feel confident and happy with what he delivered. I can't see any fucking way. I mean, can you see any way like this guy would sit here and be excited about this movie that he made?
No, I've seen little clips of Friedkin talking about Exorcist 2, and there was a quote going around that I don't think it ever got verified if it was actually him or not. But there was a quote going around that somebody was saying that before he died, William Friedkin essentially said, I heard that the Pineapple Express guy is making a sequel to my movie. So if I die anytime soon, I'm going to haunt him for the rest of my life or something like that. I'm paraphrasing the fuck out of it. But that tracks with actual clips that I've seen him. He has that kind of snarky attitude. There was a clip that I saw where he was talking about Exorcist 2. He goes, yeah, I walked into a theater and the movie was playing and I saw a dude ride on the back of a fucking grasshopper or something. I'm like, what the hell is this shit? And then I walked out and I'm like, yeah, exactly. That's the response you should have to Exorcist 2. But no, and that's the thing, because I like David Gordon Green too. I loved him back before he did Halloween because I loved Pineapple Express and a couple of his comedies. I thought he did a great job with Joe, if you've seen that with Nicolas Cage. And so a lot of the things that I didn't like about the Halloween trilogy, it wasn't necessarily like things that I directly blame him for. It was just things that he was trying that I didn't feel like landed.
Yeah.
And I'm also somebody that always says, like, in regards to something like Halloween Ends, I'll prefer a movie that takes swings that doesn't work for me versus a movie that plays it dead safe and they execute that okay.
Yeah.
Because that's boring. So,
well, do you think with this movie, this is what I've thought over the last few days. I'm curious because I'm so in shock at the movie that was delivered, because I really do think so much of their job with Halloween 2018 was getting things back on track for fans to get excited, because we're coming off of, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which I love, but I understand why it put the franchise where it was at. Do you think their idea, him, Danny McBride, Scott Teems, do you think their thing was literally the Halloween approach of, we need to make something very safe and by the numbers, because these types of films do well? They look at the statistics. Like, look at Universal is not buying the rights for 400 million unless it's warranted. I've seen so many. Let's talk about that. People have talked about 400 million. You so overpaid, guys. When there's a sale going on of a franchise, of a title, there's documents and things you can see of what the worth of this thing has been over the course of time. That is going to make, they're not saying to Morgan Creek, I think it was, Morgan Creek's not saying we want 500 million and then Universal counters with, no, we'll give you 400. No, they're going off of legitimate merchandising, what movies have made, profits, all these different things that's going to make them spend 400 million to get this. It's a lot of fucking money. I just wanted to clear that up because I hear people always saying that, and I feel like people don't understand how this works. Of like, they're not just spending an exorbitant amount of money just to overpay. It's just how it goes. With that, I'm like, fuck. Did they sit down, know how much was on the line, and just say, we need to do what we did with Halloween 2018 and make the first movie very safe and by the numbers? Do you think that was a thing?
I don't know. I feel like this movie they were given notes the entire time. Like, and I haven't really explored, but I felt like there was so much out there to see before Halloween 2018 came out, of Danny McBride and David Gordon Green talking with John Carpenter about their passion for the franchise and their desire to bring things back and how we can do things differently. And they were kind of not really explored in the other sequels. And I haven't seen anything like that in regards to this movie. It just feels like those are the guys that succeeded with that other franchise. So let's give them some money, or maybe they were contractually obligated to write and direct a fourth film for Blumhouse. Let's get them over here. Let's kick this thing off and cross our fingers that audiences are dumb enough just to like fall for the same tricks, I guess. And then we'll kick it off with 2 and 3 with some wild idea. I really don't know. Like, it's kind of baffling to me. The movie's so vanilla that it just feels like, why does this exist?
and look at, again, like, this is where I go devil's advocate for the business versus the fan side of things. Of, if you're David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, you're stepping into a new phase of your career, a new voice, a new life for yourself, and that's amazing. And with that, there's millions of dollars to be made and a legacy for yourself to set up that most of us don't have. So if they came to me and Josh, my partner, and we had a successful film, and they were like, we're going to sign you to do a fucking trilogy right now, with most of those deals, it's, you're going to get this up front, this on the back end if it does well. The second one, you're going to get this. The third one, you're going to get that. Sign me the fuck up. Absolutely. Yep. Makes sense. I get it. However, I think where they went wrong is announcing a trilogy right off the bat. I think it makes sense to, I think you would have had, given what we see now looking back, I think the reception would have been negative no matter what. If they announced David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, Scott Teems, they're coming back, they're rebooting The Exorcist, Ellen Burstyn. It's just like, we get it, Halloween 2018. However, I would have had those conversations, or would have at least tried with my team and the people involved, and say, guys, look, let's not announce a trilogy. Let's announce the first film. We know what we're planning. We know where we want to go. But I always think that it's dangerous to give an audience in today's world time to have a preconceived notion before they even see what you do. An example would be, I don't know if you know, I'm a diehard Eminem fan. Love Eminem my entire life. One of my favorite artists. He has an album that is so universally hated by basically every music fan, called Revival. And I like it. I don't think it's not his best, not his worst. It's fine. It's an Eminem record. However, he announced the track list. This is years ago, and people saw the track list, and it was, Pink and all of these Ed Sheeran, these pop people, and people were like, this is fucking trash before the album came out. So now he doesn't announce a track list, and now he just drops an album. I think that was one of those things of you put too much out there. It let people jump on YouTube and film fans say, why the fuck are we getting this? Who asked for this? Why? And who to have the balls to say you're giving us a fucking trilogy? We don't even have the first film yet.
Yeah.
I think that they handled the rollout really terribly, but knowing where the business is at today, we live in Planet Marvel, where everything needs to be a universe because that's how the studios see it. So in their mind, yeah, no, we don't got one. We got 3 coming for you. So get ready. And people just didn't buy it. They weren't excited. And like you said, I haven't seen anything with David Gordon Green or Danny McBride. I've seen nothing of them doing press, talking about it, anything. I don't know. And I will say sometimes I know things. I've talked to you about things. I know nothing about this. So I'm speaking just from what I think. My opinion is I think they know it didn't work. I think they know it's not good. I think they had a lot of boxes to check based on what they were told they have to do based on the price of purchase of the title and the franchise and the budget that Blumhouse put into this, which they never typically do. And I think they've been sort of dreading the release and probably have had phones off, hoping it does well, because in terms of business, if the movie makes money, it's good or it's bad, they're fine. If it fucking tanks and you feel terrible about it, you're really worried about what your future could be. So again, I know nothing that's confirmed. That's just my opinion. I just can't see them sitting there really feeling excited because, dude, how is an Exorcist movie, the exorcism, the most boring, bland part? Nothing feels earned. Don't you remember the moment where the mom is like, hey, it's got to be a demon, like basically something like that, when you're like, what the fuck? Like your kid just went missing, some shit's happening. Your first instinct is it's got to be a demon. Again, now you're putting in a cliched stock character, which could work in a certain type of film. The Exorcist was smartly written. It was brilliant characters. It was brilliant writing, brilliant execution. It was lazy. It was even the fucking the scene with the little girl in the church, the body and the blood, and this and that. Visually, got a lot of extras. You got a whole set piece. It could be so great. It doesn't live up to its potential. It's fucking boring. They don't do anything. When they stab Ellen Burstyn, it's again, fuck you. Like, it's so cheap. And then when the exorcism's happening, now she's fucking psychic. And she's like knowing what's happening, even though she's not fucking there. How? What happened in the last 40 years that this character has now had psychic ability? And then again, she walks up and she's like, you know, it's me. There's not more than one demon that exists. And if you believe in evil, which I do, like there's so much you could have done that they did not. Like, this to me was a bunch of people saying what they think made The Exorcist work and successful, who just have no fucking idea why that movie was what it was at all.
Yeah, that's how it felt to me too. It just let me ask you this: whether the movie succeeds or not, which Blumhouse, I mean, they I don't know who they sold their soul to. They're pretty good about making a profit, whether the movie is successful critically and by the audiences or not. Whether the movie is financially a profit or not, do you see David Gordon Green staying on for the full trilogy, or do you feel like he's just going to kick this off and he's going to exit left and somebody else is going to come in for the next 2?
50-50. Depends what they pay him. End of the day, money. Depends what they pay him. Depends what his deal is. Depends what the movie makes when all said and done. Because a lot of times people will look at a film of what it did and think it was successful or a failure, not realize that most studios lie when they say, like, I'm not saying Blumhouse lied, but examples, they said this movie cost $30 million, which is huge for them. Who's to say it wasn't 40 or 50?
Yeah.
I know films that went back into production that, like, this was years after the fact, so I could say it. The Force Awakens. I remember when that was happening, and I was hearing a lot of rumblings in town that JJ was over budget, of like, he kept going back, shooting and doing more because the pressure of that movie to be good was enormous. So with this, there's a lot of factors we don't know about behind the scenes shit that's happened. Again, I think this is one of those times where audiences are not stupid and very correct, where most times I don't agree with what they say, where they know this was a corporate film that was made. I could see David Gordon Green having a terrible time throughout this process and them spinning it as he's going to write it and executive produce it with Danny and Scott, but spin it as a way
Creative
of
differences.
well, I don't even think they would go with that because
I
they
know.
would say that if he exited, like fully exited. But if they're gonna make him, he's gonna get that check. Why wouldn't you? Like at that point, you're in. Fucking get paid. But I could see them spinning it as them giving it to a filmmaker that he's a big fan of, that he's worked with. Like an example, a bad example would be David Gordon Green stays on, but he doesn't direct. Danny McBride directs.
Oh
And
God, the internet would fucking ignite.
of course they would. But you know, again, to me, I'm the guy that goes, "Oh, that's interesting. I want to see what you're gonna do." But he's in the family. He's been a part of everything. It doesn't make it look like there's any problems because you can never acknowledge the problems. They're not. That's where PR comes in of putting the spin on. We all know the behind, but you never acknowledge it publicly. It would look like everything's good. They're happy with the first movie. They're ready to give you a great sequel and a great trilogy. However, if the movie doesn't perform, if it doesn't make, because they know there's a fine line that this movie has to break even with before they're really going to greenlight that sequel, that's yet to be seen. I could see a world where it doesn't do that and he doesn't return. But then there's also the side of it of, well, we've said for a year and some change that I'm doing a trilogy, so now I kind of feel inclined to do it. Otherwise, I'm pointing at the obvious of the problems if I duck out. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of ways that this can go.
I hear you. And then what? I really don't have any ideas. Otherwise, I would pitch mine and then cut to you. But as I've said, I can't think. I would not want the job of writing a follow up to The Exorcist because my mind just goes blank at that concept. Where do they go with a second film, let alone a third one? But where do they go for the second film to follow this up? Clearly, they're going to have some kind of returning character. I don't know if Leslie Odom Jr. and his daughter are going to come back and maybe it's going to be the battle for the soul of the girl that didn't make it. Clearly, Reagan's going to be more into it than Ellen Burstyn's character is, if Ellen Burstyn even comes back.
Yeah.
But like, what the fuck do you do with chapter 2 of this? Where do we go that was teased in this movie as an obvious direction to go?
Yeah. Again, I have no idea. That's where I think they made the mistake of announcing a trilogy because typically we would be sitting here saying how disappointing the film was, how it didn't live up, but we're sitting here under the notion of knowing they want a trilogy, and we're like, how the fuck are you doing that? I don't know, man. Again, you go back to that first original film. Think of that scene when Ellen Burstyn has friends over and Reagan walks downstairs and pees on the carpet. It's fucking disturbed. Like they spend the time in that movie to make you love this little girl and want her to be okay. I didn't feel that in this movie. Nothing felt earned. It wasn't that I hate little girls, but like the characters, nothing felt exciting. Nothing felt earned. By the time their possession shit started, to me, if I would look at anything in the movie that works, I'm like, there's something more interesting about girls vanishing and them wondering what happened, like a mystery of something that happened, because typically they're found dead or who's the killer. And it's like, no, they're alive. That whole shit in the hospital, that had some good shit to it, but none of the possession shit was scary. Also, did you notice that the demon voice for the girls was not synced to them? Like it wasn't timed properly. Did you notice that?
I mean, I knew it was ADR. I didn't pay enough attention to see if it was out of sync, but it definitely felt a bit faker than the original film. Like the original film, it's almost so natural that you could almost tell me that was Linda Blair doing that, and I'd be like, "Wow, okay, cool." When we know it wasn't, but yeah, the dub wasn't as pristine, I guess, as the one in the original.
Dude, you could literally see it wasn't lined up proper. And I was again at that point like, how do you release this film? Why didn't the dubbing for the demon boy? It's not even lined up. Like it's things like that. I think I don't know where they go from here. I don't have typically again, it's like, I like this character, right? This you could build upon them more and develop them, and that could be interesting. I just think this entire film was a misfire from the fucking start. I don't have anything. I feel bad for the actors. I feel bad for David Gordon Green. I do. I feel like this was something that started exciting of we're going to keep making movies with our friends and make a lot of money. And then things just got bad. And it was like, oh, fuck, what are we going to do? And that's like, think about being a filmmaker, right? Like being at this level, if you know it's bad and you're watching everyone online know that it's terrible and you're fearing that release date a year from now, like you got to live with that. Yeah. Like, and I know from people behind the scenes who I heard that he was cutting Halloween Ends till the last, like he kept going back and changing shit till the last minute. So, I don't know, man. I think that the real missed opportunity here is you're 100% right. There's no reason for this to ever have been a franchise. I'm a fan of franchises. You could have done something to warrant its existence. To me, the conversations I would have had if I was taking a stab at this is we know there's only so many ways someone's head can turn around full in possession. Like we've seen it. We could find little nuances to do, but we have to really say, what story do we want to tackle here? What do we have to say about religion and evil? And, I think that I know what everyone's saying about the exorcism scene with all the different religions and it being a studio note because you can't have Catholicism and Christianity. You're 100% right. However, if I'm in that writing room and I know this is a losing argument, the studio is going to make me have this because they fear backlash over things that will never have backlash. I think that's actually a really cool thing where you could have used that and made it really like there's another tool in screenwriting called What If It Could Be Brilliant? That's essentially if you're doing a rewrite, you sometimes don't have a say. You have notes that your job to get paid is to make them happen. So if you have something you fucking hate, what if it could be brilliant and figure out a way to make it really awesome? I think there could have been something there that could have been really fun with all of those religions, why they had to all come together, and something you could have said about religion in general and evil and possession. I think also throw the fuck out Pazuzu, all of that. Like, just get rid of it. Just fucking get rid of it. Let this be an Exorcist film that is called The Exorcist because it deals with someone becoming possessed, as we know, and have a complete new story. And if you're going to bring back the legacy characters, give them something to do that doesn't shit on the original, makes sense for you have to check those boxes, but really do something that's unique, man. And there's just nothing with this movie. I don't know. The only thing I could see with this, of it being a trilogy, was when I think back to his Halloween trilogy. I do think that there is something interesting that he purposely made each film completely different. That they each had a different tone, a different story. They are not linear in really in any regard. I could see a way where maybe Exorcist 2 comes out and it's a banger because it has nothing to do with this first movie or the characters besides maybe a callback to the case of the little girls. But like, I don't know. Didn't you feel like when you were watching the movie, when the movie got going, right? When we're at the point of what we paid money for to see the shit happen, nothing meant anything. Nothing held any weight because nothing felt earned at all.
Yeah, it felt that way to me, and I expected it, but going to what you were saying about walking into this knowing that it's chapter 1 of 3 definitely sets your expectations differently. And I was waiting in the movie for it to do something to merit its existence, let alone an existence of 2 more films. Like, we didn't know that Halloween 2018 was going to be the kickoff of a trilogy. It was marketed the entire time as the final confrontation, not the beginning of the final confrontation.
Do you remember? I think it was about, I want to say 3 or 4 months after it ran its theatrical run. I'll never forget. Blumhouse and Universal released a video of Laurie's house burning, and with the theme, and it said Halloween kills and Halloween ends. And they were like, oh, fucking dope. The movie made a lot of money. How it should go. We're going to get 2 more of the things that we love.
Yeah, well, you get to the end of Halloween 2018, and it was frustrating for me at the time of its release because I was really amped up about this being like a one and done. Like, we're just going to pull out all the stops and have these 2 fucking kill each other. and it ended in a point where it's kind of somewhat open-ended, and I was like, okay, well, clearly they're banking on this making an ass load of money. Maybe this was a reshoot. They're going to be more. There's clearly going to be more. He's going to get out of that fucking basement.
It was a reshoot, by the way.
Yeah. And so then we get to this movie, and you could see very easily where another movie or another two movies could go after that. It's like, okay, well, now he's back. Now he's pissed. And it's going to be about Laurie and him fucking each other up for another movie or whatever. I could see the writing on the wall. You get to this one, and it just didn't feel like there was enough there to even really tether it to The Exorcist, even if the rest of the stuff stayed the same. There was not enough to tether it to The Exorcist to merit more exploration in the story. Like, I could see a version of this, and I don't even know if this would be good or not, but like, I could see a version of this where Reagan's more prevalent in the movie. And like, say you have the scene with Ellen Burstyn where she goes in to talk to the one kid, and it's like, you know me, and then have the D like, I don't fucking know you, and then stabs her eyes out or whatever. And then say in the third act, Reagan comes in because she has experience with this and she wants to help the girl, and her mom contacted her somehow. Throw out the bullshit about her not talking to her for 30 years. And you get these two girls, and imagine a scene where the one that Ellen Burstyn did not talk to, like, I think like Dream Warriors, where Freddy sees Nancy again, and it's Pazuzu and you, or something like that. And then you get this, the ending where Pazuzu fucking takes one of the girls down to hell, and it's like, come get her, bitch. And then you have your setup for a part 2 where it's like, oh fuck, we gotta battle for this girl's soul. Or if that's impossible, Pazuzu's back, and he, you know, the fucking, the hell's coming for me. Hell wants the one that got away.
You're opening up the door to me for so much. Like, when I sit with Josh and we throw around ideas, right? We will literally get into 12-hour sessions where an idea leads to an idea leads, and then the hard part is reining it into your favorite. With everything you said, you're fucking spot on, man, because there literally was nothing attempted to even build a world, which again, another cliche term, world building in today, but there was nothing attempted to open up the door. I mean, you might laugh at this, but I said this to Josh when we were watching the movie. I said, I literally said, I've seen episodes of Ghost Adventures that are scarier than this. I'm a huge Ghost Adventure fan, by the way. Like, people don't know. I've literally seen episodes of that show because it deals, now the whole brand is demonic possession and evil, and it's bullshit, but like, it's so fun. But I do believe in evil. I do believe in people being possessed. I'm a full believer in the afterlife, and that you could tap into something in our world that makes something from another dimension come in. And that terrifies me. I think that with this film, there was so much to do of, you know, religion is not as relevant as it was in the 70s when that first film was made, when it took on that life. When that neighbor, like, my mind jumps all over this movie. And that neighbor looked at him and was like, I was going to become a nun. Fuck you. No, you were not. You were never going to become a nun. That was never a fucking thing you were going to, like, that's what I mean of, like, there was nothing believable, nothing that was weighed down. Now, how interesting would it be just to see what is being a priest in today's world look like? If you go for the most common fucking thing of what the first movie did really well, what does being a priest in 2023 look like? What does having a crisis of faith, what is it with people who have zero faith in anything whatsoever? Again, let's look at things that could have worked. Believer. I do think that there is something that could have been extremely powerful about a father or a person who's went through tremendous loss, who's an atheist, who has to put their faith in something for the person, the child that they love. I would have, this is maybe a little too Evil Dead Rise-ish, but I would have flipped it and probably had the father become possessed and had her have to step up and be the parent, because she's, you know, never had a mom, and she's had this person, and she's had to look out for herself and I just think, again, there's another rule called the 180 rule. Flip it. Let's flip it and see what movie that opens us up to. And I just think, again, even if all the exorcism shit didn't work because it's all the things we've seen before, there was no scene in this movie. Like, do you remember, like, growing up, dude, in the 80s, 90s, like, we would watch those movies, and you didn't have a great film, but there would be scenes with characters talking about something, and it would stay with you, and it would make you think about, even if it was something you didn't agree with. it just was something that you knew the writer believed. And there was so much truth in it that it opens up your mind. And to me, that's when film is at its best. Like I tell people all the time, some of the movies I love the most are movies I don't even necessarily like. So it's just kind of frustrating to me as being a person who I do believe in the paranormal. I do believe in evil. I do believe in right and wrong and religion, that there was nothing in this film that even attempted to say anything or present something interesting. Because to me, there is something about the fact that if we're building a world, evil doesn't operate how we operate. It doesn't live in a world where time is a thing. It can exist anywhere at any point in time, and that there can be mass possessions happening. Like, how scary would that be? I mean, maybe that's a bad idea. I'm talking to you like we're in a writer's room, but like if there's cases of, there's been people from all over the country with these possession things that are happening at the same exact time, the same exact things from all these different things, that you can't be in two places at once. You can't battle everything. So it's just all of these things that I feel like there could have been attempts made where nothing was made. No. Like, it was the most basic, by the numbers. Can we get to the fucking end of this movie? And it's hard, dude, because I wanted to come on here and be so excited about go see this movie, go support it. There's some, it's not great. There's some good things. That's 90% of movies for me. There's nothing I could think of with this besides I'm more angry about this movie. Like, this is on that list of movies. Like, we talked about Saw 5 earlier. Like, there are certain films for me in my life that get on this list of just ultimate hatred from the time I saw it that I just know will never change. Exorcist Believer is now on that list for me, and that sucks because I wanted to love this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like I said, my biggest hope, especially after Saw X, was that I was going to walk in with all these reservations, and I was going to walk out and say, hey, you know what? Credit where credit is due. They did a hell of a lot better than I thought they were going to. They pulled out some interesting things that I would have never thought of. No.
Yeah,
no. Yeah, and it sucks because, you know, I hate it when a beloved property gets brought back and fans who are even more rabid than I am for it are excited and hopeful, and then this is what we get. And I know how that feels when I love a franchise. So it's depressing. And
I mean, but dude, even the people I've seen watch who were positive on this film, I really don't know what they saw. Like, I don't know how you could be a fan enough of film. If you're making videos for YouTube, right, you got to be somewhat of a pretty big film fan because you're trying to extend it to more people like you. How, if you've seen anything, you've seen this movie done so much better a million times. Like, that's what's so frustrating is we've seen it, but it's also like it commits the biggest sin a movie could commit, which is it's fucking boring.
Yeah,
nothing happens. How is an hour 45? That felt like I just watched The fucking Irishman. Like, I was like, this is such a fucking drag. It's not ending. It keeps going. Why was the neighbor? Why did she become so? Why did she have the cliche bad written monologue at the end and not Leslie Odom Jr.? Why was he not confronted with anything again? Go back to that original film. There's so many themes. There are so many things being discussed and being talked about. The actual possession shit in the terms of what that story is means nothing because there's so many bigger things that are actually happening. I mean, it's like the old argument of the original Star Wars of the lightsaber fight. It's so simple, but there's so much happening that doesn't need big special effects because of the story. And there was no fucking story here, man. I'm so frustrated by it. I've literally lost sleep at night sitting up trying to, because I think of if this was me and I made this film, if I had this task, how did we end up here? Because there's no erasing it. That's the thing that sucks. If you make something that you're not proud of, it exists forever. And I don't know. I wish I could get the behind the scenes shit for what actually happened, because I'm sure there's many stories that will never be told about what happened during the whole process of the making of this film, because from the things I've heard, just like the regular things that everyone's heard, wasn't a good experience.
Yeah, I hear you. I would be very curious for those stories too. It's a shame. Sometimes it happens. Okay, we got 7 super chats that we'll catch up on.
Cool.
Alec Leslie, appreciate it. We have Marcy. I think you oversee my super chat. I read one of yours. Hopefully you. I'll try to scroll back up. Let's see. Can't wait to see. No, I got yours. Of course. Oh, there. For some reason, it didn't star. Of course, Chris Rock is not the best. Serious meant they should maybe go with Daniel Kaluuya or Mahershala Ali. But yeah, Samuel Jackson was fine. I guess you were talking about Spiral whenever we were talking about Spiral. Jace, I hadn't seen a Saw movie since Saw 2, so when Peterson grabbed the bag and the timer appeared with the Saw theme kicking in, chills. P.S. Here's my life savings. Should have put it to better use. Marcy, I got holy water on my Pee-wee Exorcist version. Referencing the Halloween 2018 peanut butter. Yeah. Dana McBride restrained himself this time. There is fuzz in the chat. Can we just say different opinions for different people for different reasons? Bit fair isn't fair anymore, apparently. Yeah, I saw there was some argument going back and forth where somebody was saying that the movie has a lot to say, and I never really got their side of the argument, but whatever. Legion, like the name too. Brad Dourif is underrated in Exorcist 3. I think that's his best performance, so I would agree. And he's got some outstanding ones.
Yeah.
And then finally, we got Levi. Thoughts on A24's recent announcement about switching to more mainstream and franchise movies? Well, I don't think that they're saying that they were switching. They're just going to do more movies that are mainstream and franchise, because previous to the past 2 years, A24 almost exclusively made movies that were just niche. And usually they were critic darlings. They were not audience movies, except for real specific people. And there was something really cool about that. Like I famously many times said, like, A24 just doesn't make movies for me, because most of them that I watched were just like really almost pretentious. It Comes at Night was one that I always reference, where it's like nothing fucking came at night. I sat there for 2 hours, nothing fucking happened. And then you have a movie like X that I loved. Even Pearl's a little more experimental than X is. And then Talk to Me, which was a big hit earlier this year. I would say those are a step in a more mainstream direction, while still very much having that A24 independent kind of flavor. So to me, it makes sense. You know, they see the success that they had with hopefully what will be the X trilogy when Maxine comes out. They saw the massive success with Talk to Me. They've already announced Talk to Me 2 with that little fucking trailer thing that they did with I can't do it. So I think that they're just making a smart studio decision. I don't think it's going to compromise their slate of films. I don't think it's going to compromise what people love A24 for, but they're just going to extend their reach and try to reach other audience members as well and reach a lot more money. So do you have any different thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I pretty much agree. I just think it's just going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's A24 or any studio, guys. This is the way it works. People take a shot in this business, trying to find a niche that connects. Most don't. Theirs did. You become successful and you keep building, you keep going. I mean, there's stories that are as old as this business is of that. Look at New Line Cinema. It's called the house that Freddie built for a reason. They built they built that studio off of that, and then they ended up winning Oscars for Lord of the Rings, and Bob Shea, that producer, sold New Line for hundreds of millions. It's a true American entrepreneur success story. It's no different with a company like A24. I don't know who runs it, whose company it is. Someone who's probably been in the business a long time. They found their niche. What I think is still surprising, because I really don't think audience members are really invested most of the time in film, is that they've become such a brand for audiences. I still don't know how that really happened. That kind of came out of nowhere for me, but it's no different than Blumhouse, bro. Blumhouse started because Jason got Paranormal Activity and then built his brand on being the company that gave filmmakers freedom to do whatever they wanted because their asses were covered for a budget. Things like Halloween made them go into a different league of being that small company that takes risks. Like, trust me, they're a normal studio now. A24, it's inevitable to be the same thing. There was another company my friend worked at. I don't know if you remember, it was a studio called Open Road Distribution. Yeah, my friend worked there for a long time. Literally every movie they made lost money. Like to where how are they still in operation? Because every film has been a flop, and they're not around anymore for that reason. So if they're making money and they're doing well, they're going to expand. I think you're going to have the people it's like when you find a band, right? And everyone's like, I loved you when you were unknown. And then you become successful and everyone's like, fuck you, you sold out. Yeah, exactly. Like you're going to have the fans who are still going to love their shit. And then people are going to say, I loved them when they were unknown in making this movie that no one talks about. But it's going to happen. It's Hollywood.
Absolutely. And then the final one we have another donation from Top Skylings. Thank you so much. All right. So before we wrap this up, because I know everybody has probably been talking about this, and I know this is a hot topic for you. And I brought it up. I brought it up slightly earlier. The rights acquisition for Halloween. So we had a bidding war going on. There was some rumblings that A24 had gotten the film rights. Apparently that didn't happen, and now it's revealed that Miramax has the TV rights, and apparently they already had like 49% of the film rights, and they're planning on doing a cinematic universe of Halloween. Your thoughts?
Very mixed.
The sigh is all I need.
Yeah, no, like here's the thing, very mixed. I'm not the guy. I've seen a lot of fans being like, I want it to go away for 10 years and come back. No, I don't.
I'd like three years.
Yeah, I'm just like, again, man, I grew up that's why I'm in the business. I grew up loving these franchises and all of these films, even the bad ones. So like, give me more. Yes, give me more. To me, it's not hard. It shouldn't be hard for me to be the guy who says, give me more. I just want them to be good or interesting. That's all. That's the least you could do is make them interesting. That's why you have a film like Halloween Resurrection that is so bad, because it is just so by the numbers, bland, and just a bad film. So now with this announcement, I'm like, okay, cool. Someone was going to get him. The franchise is never going to end. One of my favorite things of Halloween Ends is the fact that they did put him in the fucking grinder and killed him in this timeline, and we're going to go back. I hope they're looking at things like The Exorcist right now and seeing what did not work and what fans did not like, because for the record, I do not want a Halloween TV show. I think that's the worst fucking idea. I just want a movie to be a movie. I know everything has to be a show today. Can we just let some things remain cinema? The best version of a show I've seen that was in this realm was a Bates Motel, and even that was still CW-ish, but I really liked it, and that made sense to me because, yeah, let's see Norman Bates as a teenager. That makes complete sense. I'm down for it. Vera Farmiga is fucking great. Cool. Please, no Laurie Strode. Please, no Laurie Strode in any capacity of recast, this and that. Please, no, like just none of the most obvious fucking things. Like, to me, what would be exciting is taking Tommy Lee Wallace's approach of Halloween 3, of letting Halloween be the central theme and just telling anthology, different stories around the holiday of Halloween and the superstition of that and what that could be. I mean, sort of like Carpenter envisioned in the original, of like before they made the second of it, it's like a Twilight Zone episode. This is just
Would you be on board for the TV series if that's what that was? If that was the side of it, was just exploring the Halloween season of the witch approach?
I would be so much more excited. Yeah. Like I would be so much more excited because I love anthology movies in general. Like even if they're not good, I just like filmmakers coming in and making a cool short. So I think it would be cool to see what they would do and what they would say about that. However, I know that's not going to happen because they're not going to make a fucking show and go to the one film that no one, for the most part, likes in terms of what the money has been. It's going to be about Michael Myers, which makes me so angry and upset about it being on a television show. I don't know when you let the show air. Does it only come out in the fall? Does it have to all air before October ends? How many episodes? Is it take place on Halloween night in each episode? If it's like, let's say 12 hours, each episode's an hour of the night. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm not excited about it. I'm really not. In a perfect world, I wasn't very excited about A24 because I thought they would just make it weird just to be weird versus having a real approach. What I would love to see is someone just go back to basics, the basics that David Gordon Green got right and that John Carpenter invented, of Michael Myers is the shape. We're curious of, we don't have answers, we don't know why, and presenting new characters that can be the new Laurie Strodes that lets us track them and want to root for them for many different chapters. Because if David Gordon Green got anything right, it was going back to Carpenter's original vision of they're not brother and sister. That is the downfall of the franchise. I love all of the films, but there is something terrifying about that first movie of there's no reason. We don't know why. We don't know what it is about her that he's drawn to, but he's not stopping. And we project so much onto that mask and onto that performance. So I just would love to see someone make it simple again and give us brand new characters in a brand new world. Like, look at, dude, I love Haddonfield. I love that whole idea of that town, and various films have tried different things. Like, are you aware of Carpenter's film that he was trying to make the original Halloween for? So before Carpenter sold his rights back to Mustafa Akkad, he wanted to make Halloween 4. He was going to write it, maybe direct it. And it was a really great idea. It was different. It was basically that Halloween had been outlawed in Haddonfield because of Michael Myers, and I think it was like basically people's belief in Michael made his evil come back, and it manifested in different ways. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something different that was really fucking cool and would have, again, made sense to be a Halloween 4 because it's a different type of story. They didn't do that. For obvious reasons, we know what we got, but I hope now they can really do something similar. But the thing that doesn't excite me is these people are looking online at what fans want because they think if we give them what they want, they're going to love it. And that says Halloween Ends is terrible and everyone hates it. And that means they're not going to try anything. In my opinion, like the example I give for this is Star Wars. The Last Jedi, very, very divisive film. I fucking love it. I think Rian Johnson did exactly what a filmmaker should. Push things forward, introduce new things, give us something we're not expecting. I think most of the things don't work in the movie. However, I see a film with a viewpoint, with a specific voice. That movie came out. Everyone shit on it. Everyone hated it. Disney listened to it and said, we're going to give the fans what they want. You look at episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, to me, it's the worst Star Wars film. It literally gets rid of everything Ryan did and gives the fans everything they said they wanted online, and everyone fucking hates it. So that's where I'm like, no, you should not listen to what fans want. You should hire a filmmaker who's got something to say and let them take a stab. But I just don't think we're going to get that. That's not the world we live in anymore of filmmaking.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I was really interested in A24 getting it because even if I would have assumed they probably would have kept it more mainstream than what you were fearing, but even if they did get a little weird, like I said earlier, I would prefer somebody do something bold and weird, and maybe it pays off for me versus give me something that I can write myself. You know, I'm one of those rare people that like Rob Zombie's Halloween too because how fucking bonkers that it is. And so they didn't get it. Whatever. You get Miramax. Miramax does good stuff, but we've seen Miramax Halloween movies. And so that's the only disappointment with me is it's like, okay, well, we've already seen what these people can bring. I'm hoping the TV side of it is going to be where they're going to stretch their legs and give a lot of creativity and do things like Season of the Witch and you know, that'll just be, they're talking about them all being connected as far as being in the same world. So there's probably a limit to how crazy they can get. Unfortunately, I would prefer they just untether that. Do your TV bonkers shit, go as balls out as you want to, and then Michael Myers can be in his own world in the movies. But I'm with you. I don't want the obvious shit, and that's everything that I see people saying online. I haven't really seen anybody crying for Laurie to come back. I think that's something that everybody agrees. It's like, we've had enough. They did their try for one final go. If it's not Jamie Lee Curtis, we don't want it anyway, and there's no chance in hell she's going to come back again, nor should she. But the other thing I've seen everybody already kind of going for is like, ooh, bring Daniel Harris back and show what happens after Halloween 4. And I love Daniel Harris. There's a certain poetic justice that I am a fan of her finally getting her due and able to get kind of the opportunity that Jamie Lee Curtis has been given multiple times at this point. But that falls under obvious to me, where it's just like, I don't really need to see a Jamie Lloyd versus Michael Myers because that's going to be thematically the same exact thing as Laurie. Like, I want to see a filmmaker come in and, like you said, that original concept, which is what I was hoping for when they announced David Gordon Green and Danny McBride were making a Halloween film before they announced Jamie Lee Curtis was coming back, was that Myers is the shape. There's no fucking familial ties. There's no motive. And we're just going to unleash him on a modern world. I either want that, or I want them to go back to the original film after he falls off of that banister, hits the ground, and then I want to see the story from there that doesn't have anything to do with Laurie Strode. Maybe Loomis,
Yeah.
maybe, but I want to see like that little flashback sequence that we got in Halloween Kills. I want a movie of that.
Yeah, and you know, it's actually funny. I just said that to someone recently, and I never thought of it till very recently. I think if there was one mistake maybe they made in the last trilogy, it's a big missed opportunity. Is everyone loves all of the shit in Halloween Kills that takes place in the 70s.
Yeah.
I think you could have had that should have been an entire movie. Of
Yeah.
Part of the problem of that timeline to me is she's Sarah Connor after the events of the first film only, where if you included the second film of the massacre at the hospital, it makes sense for her to be as crazy as she is in the town, to fear him. It's hard to buy that with everything. However, you could have told a completely new story of what happened that night in the 70s after he got up off the ground. I think with the new stuff, what I would be fine with, what I think the series has never been the same with, is I do think you should have a Dr. Loomis character. I think if you boil down what makes that first film work so well, it is Donald Pleasance being the opposite of the Shape. And I love Rob's versions of the films. I will always defend those movies for various reasons. However, I think Malcolm McDowell was the perfect person for Loomis for what Rob was trying to do. I think that let's let a new actor come in. Like, we don't need a Laurie Strode, but give us a new Loomis. We have Donald Pleasance. Give us that doctor who's obsessed over this character for whatever reason they want to go with this time. I think there's something interesting with that, but I do fear them saying young Laurie Strode with a new actress. Let's get into that. You know what I mean? Like I could just see these conversations happening because I know how this town works, and most times people aren't smart and they don't want to do things that are good. They want people, they don't think audiences are smart. They want to give them comfort food because they know that they'll eat it because they typically do. So I'm very nervous, to tell you the truth. There is no part of me that's excited for a show. I do think if I was Miramax, I would go to Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter and I'd keep them on board. I would get Jamie Lee to executive produce. I'd get John to keep doing the music because it's a merchandising dream and it keeps fans happy. I could see a world where Laurie's still in the show. That's how they could sell the show. One-off appearances, if it's a anthology type of show where we're seeing Laurie in a completely different context, it doesn't have to do with the Shape. I think that to me is more interesting than another by the numbers story, but remains to be seen. What I will say is I think we can all expect in the next 12 months to see a polarizing name be announced that people are going to be equally excited about and equally what the fuck about in regards to the show or a movie. I think for sure we can bet on that, like the same way we did with David Gordon Green and Danny McBride.
For sure. Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, we're closing in on 3 hours, so we can wrap it up unless you got any further thoughts on Saw X or Exorcist or Halloween. I think we pretty much unwrapped the shit out of all of them. So
Nah, dude, this was so much fun. I know we've been waiting to do this for so long, and honestly, it's just fun talking movies with friends who get it, because this is where we're morons, because we live in the real world, but we let these things take up so much space in our life because we love it. And it's awesome to just have you in my life as a friend and keep doing what you're doing, because I watch these people on YouTube, and without naming names, you can just tell how many people are disingenuous. And I think you've built a name for yourself because of your taste and how honest you are. So as a friend and as a fan, keep fucking doing it, man. You're killing it.
I appreciate it, dude. Yeah, I've had fun, and we'll definitely find a way to kind of do this again whenever there's something else to either praise or rant about. We'll figure it out one way or another. But I appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun. Is there anything that you want to plug to everybody? Anything in the works that you can talk about? I know you've got your movie coming out. Is there any details about that, or?
What I could tell everyone, my movie Young Lion of the West, I've literally talked about it in press for the last 5 years. It's been done for so long. It's 1,000% coming out 2024, Q1 or Q2. I'm in LA right now closing that deal. And when the film comes out, I would love to do shit with Cody, with other people, and I don't want it to just be about me selling a film. I want to talk about the shit I've tried to talk about on here, of the process, the things that people don't see. And Cody, you could say it, I've told you, I don't want you to ever tell me you love my shit or you like, because we're friends. I love your opinion. I am not sensitive. You could look at me and be like, Joey, it fucking sucked. I hated it. You sucked. I'm cool. Like I swear to you guys, like there is a thing that happens when you believe in a story for so many years and you fight. I've been working on this movie since I was 17, and it's one of so many different films. It exists. It's real. I did it. Nothing anyone could ever say could take that away from me. So I'm so excited to have that roll out, hopefully enter in the new phase of my career, while also I'll still do unscripted shit. I love it. I think it's so much fun, and I think there's a value to it. But I am an actor, I am a filmmaker, and I cannot wait to show that to you guys. So look forward to that early in the new year at some point.
Yes, and I have seen it, and I don't blow smoke. I did enjoy it. So it's different. It's not horror. It's more like a crime thriller, drama, stuff like that. But it is something worth keeping your eyes out for. I'll absolutely be letting everybody know when it gets closer to that time of release to keep their eyes out for it and everything. As far as things on this channel, after that massive fat ass Saw ranking that I did yesterday that I worked on for 2 days, I'm taking the weekend off. So once I sign off from Joey, I am putting YouTube outside of my brain for a couple of days. Me and my wife are actually heading to Orlando tomorrow for Halloween Horror Nights. I worked out a deal with Universal to where I'm going to do some vlog footage, put a video out next week with our experience. First time I've ever been, first time my wife's ever been. So that'll be cool. That's something to look forward to next week. I'm going to start reviewing the Hostel films because of the films we got on the 31 on 31 slate. Those are the only ones I have not already reviewed. So over the next 2 weeks, you'll get those 3 movies. Of course, we got Chucky. I've just been doing short reviews with those. I'm still kind of damaged from season 2. So it's been a rough road for that one. And that's mostly what my month looks like so far. I'm sure I'm going to find some other things to do. It's really a light October. So, now that we're kind of wrapping up the Saw conversations on this channel, we got Five Nights at Freddy's coming out. I'm going to kind of be flying by the seat of my pants with ideas. So that's what you can look forward to on here. And I'll whenever I get done with this too, I'll put some links for Joey's socials, very heavy on Instagram and stuff like that. If you guys want to follow him and keep up with all things Joey Sasso, check out season 1 of The Circle if you want to see the origins of our love story. And then beyond that, guys, just thanks for joining us. Thank you for all the super chats and the comments. And yeah, we will see you next time. If I could find the fucking outro. There we go. We will see you next time.